to Dauphine on behalf of his president, and welcome to the University PSL on behalf of his other president. I'm very pleased also to welcome you on behalf of the co-organizers of this conference, Joelle Toledano, Hubert Tardieu, and Jakob Rehof. This is the third joint conference co-organized between the Governance and Regulation Chair and the GaiaX Institute, headed by Jakob Rehof. And we are here to discuss the development of data space in Europe. So thanks to the initiative by the Commission, but also by many national governments and by also some industry leaders in different industries, we have been witnessing for the last years the development of the technology to build data spaces and also a lot of proof of concepts, both technologically and from the business perspective, have been developing. That said, we are clearly at a turning point. Most of those initial initiatives were funded or subsidized either by governments or by some industry leaders. And now the question is, how can we switch or evolve from proof of concepts to data sharing ecosystem? So in a sense, how can we switch from data sharing initiative to data sharing ecosystems that will deliver economic value and growth and productivity and competitivity for Europe? Because behind that, behind the development of those ecosystems, there is this idea that it could boost productivity gains and competitivity of the European industry in general. And in fact, the challenge is are numerous in a sense, because some of the initial ideas about the development of those ecosystems reveal to be incomplete. To make it short, many of those developments were based on the idea that the core issue was to develop markets for data. While in fact, the economic value that is delivered by data sharing initiative seems to be in reshaping and reorganization on value chains within industries and across industries. And this is a huge challenge because it's not only a question of technological development in terms of IT, even if those technological developments are very important and crucial, but it's also a reorganization of business process, reinvention of business models. And when I'm speaking of business models, I'm not speaking of the business models of the data sharing intermediaries, but I'm speaking of the business models of the industrial partners in those value chains. And so this conference today is one of the many initiatives. There are many others, especially in the context of GaiaX, but also in many other contexts at the national level, of course at the European level, of reflection on what's going on and how to switch from initiatives to lively and growing ecosystems. And this is basically what we will discuss today with representative of the political authority, but also representative of the industry and also some academics that will give their 2 cents on the development of those initiatives. And it's my pleasure to give the floor to Jakob to complete and to say everything I forgot to say in this introduction.
Thank you very much, Éric. It's such a pleasure to be here again. Fantastic to be able to come here from Cologne to Paris-Gare du Nord in about 3 hours and 15 minutes by the Eurostar train. I'm amazed that that's possible. And that's really great to be here again. The GaiaX Institute tries to contribute to this forum here in general, working together with the colleagues here, but in particular maybe also by considering emerging technology topics. And so some of you may have noticed the topic of automated compliance being spoken of from this viewpoint. And this time around, we are going to be talking about using generative AI to help solve data interoperability problems. And so at the end of the day, I'll say more about that in that particular session. So for your orientation, that's, in my mind, sort of the next emerging technology topic of central relevance to the strategic developments in the GaiaX and data sharing, European data sharing context. And so I'm really happy to be able to talk about that together with Jérémy Montbreny from Airbus, with whom we've started a fantastically interesting collaboration in this area, and also Benoît Thiers, who will be here to talk about that at the end of the day. So stay on for the last and second to last session of the day. Don't go away. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, as Jakob highlighted, we will deal with different topics during this morning and this afternoon. So in the morning is really dedicated to let's say the governance, broadly speaking, of the development of those data sharing ecosystem. So we will start by a first session on let's say, those who are in charge of thinking to the overall governance scheme, as, let's say, the political authorities or those who are involved in the governance and regulation of data sharing activities. The second session will be dedicated to those industrial leaders that are trying to promote the development of those data sharing ecosystem together with those processes of industrial transformation. And then we will have a last session this morning on the dynamic of emergence of development of those ecosystems, because of course the first steps are crucial in the development of those ecosystems. And in the afternoon, we will have a discussion on how to onboard SMEs. We will probably also mention that in the morning. And as Jakob just mentioned, we'll speak of the technical opportunities that are now provided by all those developments around AI. Let's start by this first session, and in this first session, I will have the pleasure to have 3 speakers. Ivo Volman from the DG Connect, Sarah Jacquier Pelissier from ARCEP, and Mario Campolargo from the University of I forgot the name, Margot. So Aveiro, sorry, because in fact he's a young professor at the University of Aveiro. He has been for a very, very long time working for the Commission in diverse positions, and then he has been a ministry in Portugal. So I will get back to that later when I will introduce his talk. But the first talk will be given by Ivo Volman. So Ivo Volman is director of the Data Directorate at the DG Connect. He was trained as a lawyer initially, and he worked for the Dutch Ministry of Economic Affairs for a while before joining the Commission. And in the Commission, he has been dealing with many issues related to the development of to the digitalization of Europe, of the information market, so development of information markets, of the digitization of the European industry, etc. And Ivo Volman will discuss this morning of the exercise that was just managed by the Commission, which was basically to assess the data strategies that took place from 2020 to 2025, to discuss the new main line of the new data strategy of the European Commission, which are rounding about some buzzwords: simplification, compliance, internationalization. So Ivo, the floor is yours.
Many thanks for the invitation to speak here, and I'm sorry that I cannot be there physically for this very timely event. Why is it timely? Indeed, as you said, Éric, we are preparing for the data union strategy that should come out next month, at the end of next month already. Now, data. Data is key for artificial intelligence. No artificial intelligence without data, and that's why good access to and use of data is so important in the current digital environment. Even the largest players, they're running out of data. They're looking for new data sets to fuel their AI endeavors. And we must make sure that Europe is a player in this game and not just a playing field, right? Now, you mentioned the European data strategy of 2020. We set out a clear vision to create a genuine single market for data, where data can flow within the EU across sectors and borders, while always respecting European values. Now, this vision is now becoming reality thanks to some major building blocks that we have set in place. The Data Governance Act, it boosts trust in data sharing by creating a safe framework for data intermediaries that bring the supply and demand of data together, and also by encouraging data altruism. And then the Data Act. The Data Act entered into application only 2 weeks ago, on 12th of September this year. And its goal is simple but powerful: to ensure that the value created by data is shared fairly among all the stakeholders, the users of connected objects, manufacturers, and service providers. Now, it gives users the right to access the data generated by their IoT devices and to share it with third parties. Now, this opens up massive new opportunities for innovative services across the economy. And now we must make sure we grasp these opportunities. Together with our open government data policy, these instruments have really laid the foundation for a data economy built on fairness, trust, and innovation. But legislation alone is, of course, not enough. We've also been investing in and supporting the creation of the common European data spaces, concrete sector-specific environments where data holders and data users can collaborate under common rules and standards. Now, the initiative of the data spaces has had strong political support. The European Council, that's the heads of state and government, they recognize the need to accelerate the creation of common European data spaces. Member states have also stepped up. Germany supports several data spaces, including GaiaX and the mobility data space. France is backing the agricultural data space and the Alt-EDIC initiative. Finland is supporting 15 data space projects only in Finland. And we are now seeing a thriving ecosystem that is taking shape. Over 800 participants joined the most recent Data Space Support Center event. Well, GaiaX, it has grown to more than 330 members. We have seen 132 projects across more than 115 data spaces in 15 plus domains, with over €1 billion investment by public and private actors. And actually, the Commission alone has invested in the last 5 years 300 million to support data spaces in 14 sectors, including the development of Simple, which is our technical infrastructure. The most recent launches in April include the agricultural and energy data spaces. Moreover, member states are making high-value data sets available for free in 6 categories of high-value set data. Geographic data, statistic, meteorological data are some of them. And this is ideal material for SMEs and startups to work with. Now, this is part of our broader European open data policy. And of course, we're also working with CNES on a European trusted data framework to define standards for data spaces, something seen by politicians as very technical, but hugely important to make things happen. Of course, the picture is not without challenges. I just indicated what worked, but what can be done still? Well, Éric mentioned a few things already. Many data spaces are still at an early stage. Infrastructure is being deployed, governance is being agreed, but results will take time to materialize. As Hubert said it last year to me, well, you cannot plant a tree and expect fruit the next day. This is true, but now we must make sure that, well, within a few years, we really have the fruit. Scaling up is difficult. Business models are not yet sustainable for the long term, not only for the data spaces themselves, but as Éric said, it's also problematic to have the right business models of the industrial partners. Still experimentations ongoing. Many initiatives depend heavily on public funding. So can we make that self-sustainable? Another important factor that we have to work on is that the link with AI development is still missing. And yet data spaces could really be a key enabler of European AI leadership. So we must strengthen this connection. And we must do more to showcase successes. Projects like the cancer image database, genomics data space are leading the way, but we need many more examples that demonstrate the value of sharing data. What can happen if you share data and if you pool data? Okay, what comes next? Well, we must scale up. The frameworks are there. Now we need to turn them into real economic value, boosting innovation and competitiveness for European businesses. Second, we need to connect the data spaces with the AI developers. AI feeds on data. Even the most sophisticated algorithm is useless without high-quality training data. That's why we're preparing this data union strategy that I mentioned. It's really about supporting the creation of large, high-quality data sets that will allow European AI models to compete globally. Data spaces will play a key role here, ensuring that data is shared under clear rules and conditions, protecting the rights of those who generate it. And we are not stopping here. In the next 2 years, we will continue funding data spaces with 200 million euros allocated in the 25-27 work program of the Digital Europe program. Now, the data union strategy, it will be about data for AI, the data infrastructures, new data sources, but not only. Other ideas, areas we're looking at are, in the first place, simplification. Over the past years, the digital rulebook has got thicker. Well, that's for all the right reasons. Trust in data sharing, establishing what's fair in the distribution of value of data. These are fundamental issues for the data economy and also for an internal market for data. But sometimes we get the message that things have become actually very complicated. So many instruments, so many rules. And that's the basis for the second pillar of the data union strategy, simplification. So we are exploring ways to simplify the legal framework, including aspects of the free flow of data regulation, the Open Data Directive, the Data Governance Act, so that compliance can be as straightforward as possible. And we will also continue to support stakeholders in the implementation of the rules that are on the table. We keep listening to stakeholders, companies, industry associations, and civil society, of course, to make sure that our rules stay practical and proportionate. We will keep developing and updating practical resources. For example, the FAQs on the Data Act, implementation guidance on the Data Act to help business understand and comply with these new rules. And we will launch a legal help desk for the Data Act to provide direct case-specific support to companies that seek clarification on the Data Act regulations application. Next to that, we're preparing guidance, formal guidance on the trade secrets aspects that, as you may have heard, can sometimes be a bit controversial. Now, on simplification, another important novelty you can expect from the Commission before the end of the year is the creation of an EU-wide business wallet, a digital business wallet. It's a digital wallet for enterprises that will allow them to identify themselves throughout the EU and to interact with administrations in a much easier way than is the case now. So keep an eye out for that one. Now, in the past years, in this conference, we have also discussed the possibilities to use data for reducing administrative burden, simplifying compliance. Jakob mentioned it. Now, many companies already collect data for their own operations, production, logistic compliance. With the right technology, the same data can be used automatically to meet EU reporting requirements. And we have listened to the ideas in this area, also in this conference, and the Commission has launched an action under the Digital Euro program to develop digital solutions that automate compliance and simplify reporting. So we are investing 16 million euros in projects that will make reporting faster, cheaper, and less burdensome. And that will help companies to stay competitive. So the first pillar that we're looking at for the data union strategy is data for AI. The second pillar is about simplification. A few words on the third pillar that we're looking at. It's about the external dimension of the data union. As geopolitical tensions and digital protectionism grow, Europe must respond with an assertive approach to international data flows. We had the concept in the data strategy of 2020 of open but assertive. But what does it mean, this assertive? Well, we must make that more concrete. So we are going to strengthen the EU's global position through a strategic approach to international data flows. To sum up, Europe has made huge progress in building the foundations of a strong, trusted data economy, but we're still at the beginning of this journey, and we have to speed up the journey. The task ahead of us is to scale up what we have built all together to make sure that the benefits of data sharing are felt across our economy, and also to link data with AI innovation better than we're doing now. Finally, to give businesses the tools they need to compete globally. Now, if we get this right, the data spaces and the European data framework will not just be a set of rules. They will really be a driver of innovation, competitiveness, and digital sovereignty. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So if there is one or two clarification questions from the room, I think Ilvo will be able to deal with them. Any clarification question, discussion? So we let it open for the open discussion later on. And so I'm giving, okay, we have a question here.
Good evening, sir.
Just introduce yourself while you're raising
the question. I am director for Orange operator. A question. Data fuels the modern enterprise, but how do you harness its power in today's age, cloud, and AI? Landscape. With innovative data solutions from HPE, you can unlock the true value of your data by simplifying management, improving security, and unifying data across environments. Transform data into actionable insights with a high precision. Analytics that enable smarter. What is the challenge in the coming years?
Yeah, I think it was very difficult for Ilvo to understand your question because of the way it was raised. It was a very long question. And second, it was a written question, but the communication was not perfect. So I'm afraid it's not really a clarification question. It's basically a question that address most of the discussion we'll have today, and so I will spare Ilvo the difficulty to reiterate what he just said, and because we are addressing many of the issues you mentioned, through technical development and development of governance arrangements, etc., and which is a challenge behind the development of those data spaces.
So I'm Martine Gourier from EDF. Thank you for the presentation. You spoke about digital sovereignty. What is it for you, digital sovereignty?
Yeah, I mentioned it once, the term. It's about Europe not being dependent on technologies of third countries. It's about Europe charting its own course. So these are the two key elements for me. But I do know that digital sovereignty is used in different ways by different people.
So let me give the floor now to Sarah Jacquier-Pelissier. So Sarah Jacquier is also a lawyer by training, and she also exercised the profession of lawyer in different law firms before joining the ADOPI, which was the authority responsible for the enforcement of, let's say, to make it short, copyright and droit d'auteur on the internet, and which merged with other authorities, and now we have these authorities responsible for the regulation of media and digital and digital media in general. Sorry. ARCEP, yes, and Sarah joined the European Commission for a few years to manage the reform of the copyright and droit voisin and droit d'auteur law, especially in the context of the press. And she joined then the French Ministry of Culture before being appointed as a member of the College of ARCEP. ARCEP is the regulatory authority for electronic communication and the press, but is also responsible now for the regulation of data exchange and the regulation of data intermediaries. And so ARCEP, of course, has been involved for the two last years in the beginning of the enforcement of and the implementation of the EU regulatory framework for data governance and data exchange, and through this experience, but also because the Commission launched a consultation about its strategy for the next 5 years, which was just discussed by Ilvo. Sarah was involved in the preparation of the French contribution to the new data strategy at the European level, but of course at the French level as well. So Sarah, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Éric, et bonjour à tous. I'm happy to represent ARCEP today and talk about the implementation of our new regulatory powers in the field of data regulation, as you said, Éric. So the Commission has recalled the overall EU strategy to create a genuine single market for data. ARCEP mandate is rooted in that ambition. It particularly stems from the Data Governance Act and the Data Act that Volman just mentioned, and I know this conference is familiar with. And I know that Laura, our president, has come many times here. Well, the Commission gave you the big picture, and I will try to give you some insight on concrete experience gained by ARCEP in implementing our new duties conferred by the French law dated May 2024, SREN. I will tell you where we stand and share a few thoughts. Éric, you correctly said that I was a lawyer, and you know, each lawyer starts his note by a disclaimer, you know, so I will do the same. The challenges are high, so of course I will concentrate on the specific task that we were assigned by the legislature, but I will also discuss what we can see and observe beyond this task, okay? But I needed to make this disclaimer because I didn't want anyone to be frustrated in the audience. So let's start with the topic of intermediation services, which is a new category of services created by the DGA. With the creation of this new category of services, the DGA intended to give birth to trusted providers of data sharing services who would pool and organize data neutrally to increase trust in data sharing. To ensure this neutrality, intermediation services have to comply with strict requirements in terms of security, notably, and they cannot share data for their own interest, but they can offer additional services for the purpose of facilitating exchange of data. Intermediation services have the obligation to notify themselves to the national competent authority. In France, it's ARCEP. And if so they wish, they can apply to ARCEP to be authorized to use a label across the EU. The label has a very long name. It's called Data Intermediation Service Provider Recognized in the Union. That's the label. I will call it the label in the future developments. So what are the figures to date? 9 services notified among 23 in Europe. So that's a pretty good score for France. The sectors are various. It includes health, airport logistics, tourism, spatial, and education. 2 services, MiTrust and Hub One Data Trust, following their request, have obtained a label from ARCEP. MiTrust is a service designed to enable data subject to transmit data collected from reliable sources like public bodies, telecom operators, to service provider to use their data. And Hub One Data Trust offers a data intermediation service for companies that hold and use data from the airport sector. So what do we think based on these first results? From our perspective, those are positive results. They show a nascent but vibrant ecosystem around data intermediation. As a result, in our contribution to the European Commission, we argued that the framework of intermediation services should be maintained in essence, and that its logic, promoting a trustworthy data intermediaries, is still valid. Yet, we have identified some room for improvement. First, we think it's important of not having a too restrictive interpretation of the additional services that are compatible with the status of intermediary service under the DGA, because you see that they have to be mutual. So they can provide additional services, but we think it has to cover things such as improving usability of the data to cover the possibility to analyze them, select them, pre-track them, and assess their value, provided that certain conditions are met, and in particular that these services are provided upon explicit request of the data holder. So we want this to be clarified by the Commission. Second area where we find a room of improvement, and we said it to the Commission, we think that there is a possibility, or at least it should be explored, to give more value, attach more benefits to the label we grant. Of course, it is good that it can be used as a marketing tool across the EU, and we think, as such, it is really the typical measure that gives sense for a digital single market. But is it enough in the long term? Is it enough given the investment and the resources that applying for this label require? We think it's worth considering, and we do benefit that, it would be worth trying to give some additional benefits. Coming back to my first result, the first result I have shared with you, I need to outline, and especially because it's a sound on regulation, that this it didn't happen overnight. And for this, I need somehow to share the what we can call the backstage of a regulator that has to implement new tasks. Well, first, you need to recruit a dedicated team or assign a dedicated team of engineers and economics in a period where public money is not, let's say, very easy to find. Secondly, you need to meet the stakeholders of a new sector, data sector, but also I anticipate a little bit on our other tasks, cloud sector. And you need to understand and discuss the new frameworks created by EU law with such stakeholders. So you need to build a common understanding and a common trust. Trust is important in data spaces, but it's also for the regulator. In addressing these challenges, I think several factors were helpful. Of course, the personal merits of the team in charge of these duties. They are sitting over there, significant parts. Salut Léo. But also the background of ARCEP. ARCEP is well known by economic players for its role, as Éric, you said, in the electronic communication sector. Its pro-competition and innovation approach, as well as its technical and economical culture and its experience on constant dialogue with stakeholders. Promise, I will stop here the self-congratulation exercise, but I thought it was worth mentioning as it matters when you need to take on board new competences and discuss with stakeholders you are not familiar with. Second topic, data spaces. As you know, under the DGA, data spaces are sector-specific environments composed of a secure technological infrastructure and a governance mechanism. They are meant to allow data from across the EU, both from the public sector and the private sector, to be exchanged in a trustworthy manner and at a lower cost. But I know you all know these issues very well. Data space, on which I want to say a few words today on the conference, because it is the theme of the conference, do not fall directly and expressly within the legal remits of ARCEP, but they have, of course, our utmost interest. Why so? Two reasons. First, intermediations with services we regulate, I just discussed about that, may play an operative role in the sharing of data within the data spaces. Second, we are a member of EDIB, the European Data Innovation Board, which was created by the DGA. Indeed, EDIB members include national authority competent to implement the DGA, so ARCEP is, I just said. And as part of its duties, EDIB will advise the Commission on the development of interoperability norms for data spaces. It has started to work in 2023, and ARCEP participates in its meetings. On concrete initiatives on data spaces now, our perception is, as you said already, is that more and more mature initiatives are developing with the participation, as you said it again already, of very high-profile industry players. That's a very good signal, and you're right, Éric, I think it could be a turning point. Of course, we also hear about challenges that could limit a faster development of such data spaces. And I'm sure that they won't come as a surprise to you. Actually, I've heard some of them. For data holders, unclear view on how to value their own data, and there is also this issue of sharing the value of data. Fear that data sharing could imply a loss of competitive advantage and represent a misuse. I stop here a minute. Of course, the DGA wants to overcome this hurdle and challenges, but again, trust doesn't happen overnight. And of course, and I know it has been discussed, what uses case for which business models, and business model of the intermediation services and of the business partner, again, it has already been said, which is quite comforting that we all have, here the same, we have the same perception. Third topic, it covers the Data Act, and not anymore the DGA, and duties we have started to implement regarding cloud services. As Ivo said, September is an important date for data economy, as it is the day the Data Act applies. This regulation will enable businesses to obtain easier access to their data, in particular those generated by connected devices, as well as to share and monetize their data, and to have them transferred from one cloud service supplier to another one. On this latter topic, cloud services, ARCEP has indeed been working for 2 years. It started doing so based on the mandate given by the French authorities to anticipate some provision of the Data Act, aimed at facilitating the switching between cloud services providers. I briefly recall the background. It has been explored in various studies, including one very interesting study from the French Competition Authority. While cloud services are key to the data economy and underpin Europe's capacity to extract value out of data, the market is concentrated around 3 non-EU suppliers: Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. Because of their huge financial capacity and the digital ecosystem they develop, these hyperscalers are in a position to hinder competition development in the cloud sector and potentially in adjacent sectors, AI, not to mention it, but of course that's a big challenge. Also, competitive risks are identified in the form of technical, financial, and contractual barriers that can concretely discourage customers from switching from one supplier to another supplier, or to use multi-clouds. And we know that possibility of switching and using multi-clouds is a guarantee of an open market, of course. Against this background, the Data Act includes provision to tackle notably tariffs and technical barriers to the switching of clouds, and that's what ARCEP has been mandated to do. Here again, our work has entailed discussing with new players to ARCEP and understanding the business model of these players. Lots of bilateral exchanges have taken place and public consultation. Concretely, we have worked on egress fees. Those are the fees charged to a customer by the cloud supplier for the extraction of the customer data towards another supplier system. Such fees have been a limit to switching. To study these fees, we have looked at the typical infrastructure involved in the data transfer from one supplier to another one, and we have reflected on what was the incremental cost incurred by one supplier when it transferred data to another one. Joelle, I know that you're very familiar with this kind of issue, being a former ARCEP board member. So our conclusion is that this cost should be equal to 0. Why? Because we tend to consider that sizing a network capacity in a way that it can manage peak traffic for the data transfer is part of the inherent job and activity of a cloud provider. At least this is our understanding, as long as we are facing a standard operation of data transfer, which suggests notably that the supplier is given the possibility to optimize the time the transfer takes place. Our work on switching charges also involved the preparation of future guidelines on the switching charges other than egress fees and egress charges linked to multi-cloud. This work is ongoing and will give rise to a public consultation. Our objective is to try to give more clarity to the stakeholders after consultation on what type of costs appears legitimate and directly linked to the switching process. Last, technical aspect limiting cloud switching. As per switching charges that limit the freedom to change of cloud supplier, we have started to work on technical limits to portability of customer data and digital assets, interoperability between cloud services, and openness of APIs. In doing so, we have notably questioned what could be the role of harmonized standards, because we are not working isolated, of course. We have completed a public consultation in which we suggested best practices for cloud suppliers. We have analyzed the feedback on the consultation, and we will publish very, very shortly a recommendation. At this point, I will just mention that we have identified priorities for standardization. For instance, we have considered that this standardization appears beneficial for platform as a service when they are common to many cloud catalogs. And our recommendation, we outline the important role of API documentation and their stability as well as the key role of transparency in enabling users to change cloud services. To conclude, I'm sure that, like me, you have witnessed this trend, this line of people saying when they want to cast a doubt on someone else's project, oh, it's ambitious. And we know what it means. It means very often, it can't work, it won't happen, over my dead body. Yes, building a data economy in Europe and a trustworthy environment for this economy is ambitious. But I mean it here in the good manner. And yes, it takes time. At ARCEP, we are optimistic that it will happen, and we want to play a role in achieving this objective. Indeed, with our new regulatory powers in the data regulation field, ARCEP has accelerated its evolution from a regulator of telecom infrastructure towards a regulator of digital infrastructure. In carrying out duties across sectors, we apply the same guiding principles, getting attuned with the players and the sector, and opening the markets and foster competition. As I said, we see some very dynamic players, yes, sometimes still fragile, operating under a framework still recent. To these players, we say that they can rely on our commitment to apply proactively our duties today and tomorrow. And of course, Ivo is not online anymore, but we are looking forward
Easy.
Sorry, Ivo. And we are looking forward to the new European strategy on data. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So in the interest of time, I will directly give the floor to Mario Campolargo. So as I said initially, so Mario is now a colleague. He's a university professor at the University of Aveiro. But in fact, I mentioned that he was a young colleague. I was lying because, in fact, he had a past of university professor there. He was so interestingly in that roundtable. Mario is not a lawyer. He's an engineer by training and a computer scientist, and even has a degree of in management and in European studies. But anyway, so Mario, after being a researcher and the university professor at the University of Aveiro, he has been working for quite a long time for the Commission, occupying different positions. He was responsible in particular in the DG Connect of the Net Future Directorate for a while, developing those ambitious policies around the digitization of the European Union, European society and European industry. Then he was appointed to digitize the European Commission itself before joining the Portuguese government as Ministry of Administrative Modernization and Digitization. So Mario, in the last few weeks to prepare this conference, did what a university professor does. Often he made a survey of the recent literature on the development of data spaces. He surveyed both the academic literature, but also what we call in our professional language the grey literature, so the policy reports and all those other business reports. And basically, he reviewed the various initiatives globally, so not only in Europe, of development of data sharing initiatives, and basically will introduce us to this, to what he learned from this literature review. He will highlight the legal and regulatory challenge, the organization and governance challenge, the incentive of monetization, so economic challenge, and the need for technical development. So Mario, as you know, you have 15 minutes to develop your point. It's a huge challenge, but thank you so much for having done this literature review for us. And I suspect that given your background, it's not only a literature challenge. You know very well those issues. You know the field, and so Mario, the floor is yours.
It's really a pleasure to be here and to be able to share some of my thoughts. Yes, I feel a bit more free than Sarah and than Ivo, because obviously they represent institutional organizations, and although I have been for long in the Commission, 30 years is not negligible, I would say, in the life of any person. And certainly I will take here and there an institutional position, but I felt like you say, to be in this panel the person that would look around and see what are really some of the questions that people is asking around. So my first statement is, I think that we are living in this a very amazing moment where data is the most abundant resource and probably our most underused asset. I saw reports that 80% of the European industrial data remains unused. At the same time, it has been already referred by my previous colleagues that Data Act just came into force just a dozen days ago, and this is quite important and interesting in Europe. So as we have been saying, we have been building in Europe data spaces. There's a long reference from Ivo on the ones that are, but they are in health, in mobility, in manufacturing, agriculture, very important in France, energy, also in public administration, something that is very dear to my heart. And obviously the ambition is to unlock innovation, competitiveness, and I would add to that, add a new social value for data. I find it so important to consider not just economic, but the social value, especially in a world where the international order seems to be questioned every day. And I think that colleagues have said already that despite the efforts of institutions, etc., and also of GaiaX, just to pay tribute to the co-organizers of this event, we have a number of years of pilots, we have done a lot of promotion, but my feeling reading around literature on this respect is that genuine large-scale data sharing still faces significant challenges or even obstacles. Those obstacles are far from being technological. I think that they are actually multi-dimensional. And to look briefly into the challenges, I believe that we have to look into, or to confront actually these challenges from a set of 4 intertwined dimensions: the legal, the governance, the economic, and the technical. And I'm sorry that I will not compete on the legal with Sarah, neither in the governance with Ivo, but let me take just a few thoughts about each one of those 4 intertwined dimensions. First, the legal and the regulatory dimension. And yes, Europe has done a lot in terms of regulation. One of the gold standards of data protection, for example, the GDPR, I think that we all agree that was not necessarily designed with the data sharing at scale in mind. Ambiguities remain. For example, what lawful basis exists for cross-border research? How should liability be allocated when reused data leads to errors or to discrimination? Who owns the intellectual property of a model trained on shared data? How do we manage fragmentation when national regulators interpret the rules slightly differently? Those are just some questions that are quite fundamental to make this operational. The economic impact of those uncertainties is very significant. Why? Because legal uncertainty, legal ambiguity translates directly into higher transaction costs, higher risk premiums, and ultimately, I would say, a higher reluctance to share. I would conclude that without clear liability frameworks, without harmonized certification, the safest choice for many organizations is still to store rather than to share. Let me tackle now the aspects of governance. Well, you said it, Sarah, data spaces cannot function without trust, without mutual trust. But trust cannot just be a vague feeling. It requires structures, rules, and above all, I would think, credible enforcement. So the question is, who sets the rules of a large ecosystem? Who resolves disputes? And particularly important in a Europe made of small and medium enterprises, who represents the interest of smaller players? And you, Sarah, referred, for example, when we talk about cloud, the hyperscalers. We know from research that ecosystems are continuously evolving. They begin very informally, but as they scale, we need to give them formal, representative, and an accountable governance. And probably this is the hardest design question of all, because there may be misaligned incentives between providers that to fear losing commercial advantage and the users that fear, for example, poor quality of the data. And this means that a lot of consortia never move from the MOU, from the Memorandum of Understanding phase. And for smaller actors, the cost of joining is sometimes very prohibitive, leading to an ecosystem dominated by the incumbents who least need it. Let me tackle now, as a third point, the economics of market design. We still lack viable models for valuing data, and Sarah also tackled that aspect very briefly. Should a data set be priced by its volume, by its uniqueness, by the frequency of updates, by the rights of usage? There's just some questions that come to my mind reading a lot of documents. Without clear valuation, data remains economically, I would say, invisible, an intangible asset with no market price. Now, in one particular thing that is very close to my heart, the public good, and Ivo mentioned the efforts of the Commission to make high-value data available. But when we think about data and its public good characteristics, for example, mobile data, environmental data, Ivo mentioned health, space. All of these data are foundation really for innovation and public value. But they are underprovided when they are left to pure market forces. And here we need regulatory nudges. We need public funding. And without this, I believe that data sets of social value will not flow very easily. And when they flow, questions may arise on the competition side. How do we ensure that data space do not simply reinforce the dominance of large incumbents? How do we avoid a scenario where cooperation becomes collusion, or where interoperability standards are set de facto by those that are dominant in the market? And finally, let me tackle very briefly the technical dimension. But that you know much better than me, the difficulties of making data interoperable. Purely syntactic differences from file formats to the famous APIs that you referred, well, I think that they are still solvable. But I believe that the real bottleneck lies on semantics. Different vocabularies, different contexts, different meanings. Today, much of the cost of data sharing may not lie in technology, but in the manual mapping, of cleansing, curating, and interpretation of the data. And then there is the provenance and the quality. The buyers need guarantees that data is accurate, for sure, reliable, and unaltered. We talk about distributed ledgers, watermarks, trusted execution environments. All of them are very promising. But somehow we need some kind of recognition in law and above all, an adoption in practice. And I wouldn't be able to speak without talking about sovereignty. And so sovereignty and security, those are two very significant aspects. Fine-grade access controls, privacy-preserving analytics, federated learning. All these technologies start existing, and you guys have been developing some of them, but they remain costly and difficult to scale. And unless we can assure data sovereignty, the data will not be exposed to foreign surveillance, that it will remain under the jurisdiction of the European rules, participation will be very, very hesitant, in particular in some domains like health, finance, or others that imply national or personal data. So, what does this short analysis, and I apologize if it is not complete or even if it didn't pick up the right things, what does this simple analysis tells us or tells me? It tells us that the barriers are not isolated. Legal uncertainty undermines governance. Weak governance distorts incentives. Poor incentives limit economic value. And without economic value, investment in technical solutions will continue to remain marginal. The system is somehow circular, and unless we address it holistically, progress will continue being slow. What then should be our next steps? Well, I believe that the time has come, and the speakers before me said it also very clearly, the time is coming to move from promotion to regulation, from experimentation to some kind of institutionalization. Europe has a unique opportunity to show that data sharing can be not only competitive, but also fair, sustainable, and why not say it, democratic. To seize the moment, we must treat legal, governance, economic, and technical challenges not as separated silos, but as parts of one interdependent ecosystem. Dear colleagues, the turning point is now, for Europe in particular. We have many initiatives from research, from coordination, data space support center, to standardization with Sense and ELEC, etc. We have the important aspects that Ivo mentioned, the omnibus, the simplification aspects of the regulation that is undergoing right now, the Commission. We will have AI, as Jakob said, later on to see how can AI help us. Obviously, Ivo put the focus on saying what data space help AI, but how AI also solves some of our challenges in terms of interoperability, etc., etc., etc. And we have GaiaX, and I think this is important because GaiaX is an European framework. I don't know if European means a lot, but in this context means a lot. It's an European framework comprising a federation of rules, standards, and trust. It seeks to transform legal uncertainty into compliance by design. I learned this last year here with you guys, by creating certification schemes and harmonized trust tables. It builds governance that is representative by giving the SMEs, the industry, and the civil society a voice in how data space are run. Its work lowers the economic barriers by providing the infrastructure for secure, sovereign data exchange so that incentives align and markets can actually function. And technically, GaiaX delivers the missing layer of interoperability. Common self-descriptions, identity, and access management, so that data can flow across borders without losing the control or the trust. Dear friends, the opportunity for GaiaX, for all of you, is bigger than ever, as you can help building the rules, the trust, and I would say the institutions that make data spaces truly work for Europe's citizens and Europe economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mario. So we have a very packed schedule this morning, 3 sessions. So let me first give the floor back to the speakers if they want to react to the speech of each other. So Ivo, do you want to add something?
Yeah, no, very happy to. No. Many thanks to Sarah in the first place for all the work you're doing in France to make things happen in practice. I think it's really the example that shows that the regulators can make a real difference in what happens on the ground. So thanks for that. Second, I want to pick up on what Mario said about the GDPR. Now, actually, this conference is a proof how the discourse in Europe has moved on. Let's say 10 years ago, the only thing that people thought about when you thought about data, it was to protect them, to shield them, and to make sure that no bad things happened with the data, which is still very important. But we have moved in the discourse from, well, just protecting data, hugging the data, to data use, and that's extremely important. A third point I want to make is about what Mario said on standards. Now, we have made this standardization request that looks at a harmonized standard on trusted data transactions. So it's transactions, that's one element, but it's also about semantics. And Mario said how important it is. It's absolutely true. And it's also about the maturity aspects, maturity of individual participants in data spaces, at the same time also of the data spaces in total. So standardization work is ongoing, and please keep a close eye on that. Last point I want to make is about what Sarah said of being ambitious. Well, being ambitious is not a dirty word, I would say. We really, really have to make things change massively to give Europe a chance to be a real player in the data economy. And for that, you really have to be ambitious.
I will return to Ivo, not just to be polite, but congrats on the Commission, because I think you're doing a great work to promote data spaces, and I can see that every day, and the team can see that every day. And also, on a personal touch, I think we can say that some parts of this regulation package on data and digital is not always super clear. I think that's something we can honestly share. And I think that the Commission has understood that. And one particular example that I really appreciate is the fact that they have done on the Data Act. I remember when I was working on the Commission, it was, and I think it's still very complicated to pull out this kind of documents, because the legal service is very scared that the Commission services give an interpretation of the text and it is up to the Court of Justice to appreciate autonomous concept and the EU law. So there is always this, conflict of interest, that we want to help the sector, but at the same time, we don't want, So I think we need to take some risks, and I think it's a good signal. And because we really need to build a common understanding and move forward. So, well done. And I'm sure it has been tough internally to pull out this kind of documents.
Ivo, thanks very much for your intervention. And I think that what we live in Europe is now a very interesting moment, because if you look to the last 4 years, we have been regulating a lot. It has been very interesting. The situation today, And I think naturally we need to move from just regulating into implementation. So with the sovereignty aspects, with the reindustrialization perspectives, with the global geopolitics, Europe is moving from one phase to a new phase. And in this new phase, I take note of what Ivo said, simplification. And I mean, Sarah has been like I have been generating so many of those documents. When they go in parallel, there is inconsistencies, even in terminology. You know, when you think about products, you define products in one way from a security point of view, from a product point of view. What about the digital part of a product? You know, so it's really fantastic and a big challenge to bring all those efforts now into an omnibus perspective and see how can we rationalize, simplify, diminish ambiguity and all that. And I thank you for that. But at the same time, as you said, we need to invest. Europe needs now to invest. Now, I don't want to, I'm sorry to Éric to waste 1 minute of your time. I don't want to bring this geopolitics, but defense will be heavily, supported in Europe. Their data spaces will be important. So we need to actually jump on the opportunities that are relevant at European level and not just isolate data as something that is independent of all the economic aspects, because a lot of money will be going to health, going to data, going to defense, going to the heavy topics. So we need to make sure that they understand the importance of data in this context. Sarah, I really enjoyed your presentation. It's been very interesting and very concrete. And I admire ARCEP and all the other regulators that have to jump from a telecom to a digital world, because it's much, much more complex. If you look back, and I'm sure that Joelle can look back to that, telecom was quite a conservative, well-understood technical and regulatory. No, I'm joking. But now the challenges are. But anyway, I appreciate enormously, and I know that when I was Secretary of State, giving some responsibilities, some regulators was not an easy going. Thank you.
Okay, I'm really sorry because we are running out of time. We have other session. The last session today will be really dedicated to a general discussion. Please keep your comment for this last session, unless there is something that should be raised in the minute. But for instance, Joelle, maybe you could raise a point on Hubert, but you are co-organizer, so and you are chairing the next session, so it's okay.
I would like to take the opportunity of Ivo being with us, but Joelle, please.
Yes, please. I have just a very short question, even if the answer is not so short, concerning the ambitions. It's for Sarah and Ivo. You told us about the ambitions. Let's come back to the cloud. Some months ago, ARCEP, CNIL, Autorité de la Concurrence, all the regulators in France asked the Commission, please, the cloud for the DMA. You had to, okay. Last week I was in conference and I understand that no way DMA will not treat the cloud. Yeah, I was discussing with, so how do you think it's possible to have the issue of interoperability really on the cloud outside the DMA? Who will deal with this question? We understand that it was at the earth of a lot of competitive problem. Thank you.
Ivo, do you want to react?
It's a tricky one, so I will evade. Now, one important thing to watch there is the Cloud and AI Development Act that is planned for next year, where Europe will be ambitious in terms of its cloud policy. But I'm not going to go into the details of the interaction of the DMA and cloud providers.
as you know, cloud services are already mentioned in the DMA as potential gatekeepers. At ARCEP, we do stress that we think it would be a good idea to designate concrete actors. We think there's room for that. We think that some of the provisions in terms of access to data or discrimination would be very relevant. And so we hope that the Commission will do that, especially because there are quantitative criteria and qualitative criteria. So we think there's room for that, but it's up to the Commission.
Yeah, and we will be back again to the geopolitical challenge shaping this enforcement of the DMA. We all understand that. Anyway, so thank you so much to the three of you for your intervention and for your thoughtful contribution to the debate. Thank you so much. Now we'll move for a short coffee break. So we will have a 15-minute coffee break. It will be in the foyer, which is in fact you have to cross the hall and to go through the corridor to the room, which is called the foyer. This is indicated, and it will be really short, 15 minutes. So you can just interact, take 2 coffees, and be back in this room. We'll resume in 15 minutes. Thank you very much.
So, good morning. Very happy to be with you for the 3rd conference on economics of data sharing. What I would like to say, and you have seen that already since we have started, it is taking place in what I would call a new landscape. Thanks to France 2030, France 2030, which is a major program for innovation in France, several major data spaces are launched in critical sectors for industry, aeronautics, where, as you know, Europe is #1 in the world, undisputed, nuclear, where we are in the top 3 in the world. What I would like to say, which is new and which was awaited, is at the top level of these sectors, executive committees have decided that organizing data sharing in the ecosystem of several thousand of companies was the only way to face the forthcoming challenges. And you know the forthcoming challenges, they are somehow, and you will hear that today, similar. Typically, today, Airbus is delivering last year 766 aircraft, but their backlog of orders is, if I'm not mistaken, Philippe, 8,500 planes already ordered and ready to be delivered if they were able to deliver them. And in the meantime, they have to invent the low-carbon new aircraft, which is still to be designed. Similar way for the nuclear, what is in front of us about giving 10 years more to the nuclear plant existing, as well as delivering 6 EPR2 in a pretty short time frame, is absolutely critical. And the way which has been decided for these 2 industries is to share data. The development pattern which we have seen is similar in the 2 projects, and I would like to say that has been repeated in this room for the 3 years in a row. You need to reach a commitment of economic viability after a limited period of time. And luckily, the France 2030, which was driven by BPI, has set up the rules. 36 months, you need to demonstrate that you are economically viable, that you can survive without injecting funding from the government. What is important there is that we and it has been mentioned by Ivo this morning, we begin to pave the way for what we have called the season 2 of the data spaces. In the season 2, it's not anymore a time for POC, it's not anymore a time for having great ideas, but absolutely no deliverable at the end. You have probably seen this study from MIT showing that 95% of application of generative AI are not delivering any measurable result. We do not want to be in the same league, okay? So these two projects will be presented by Executive BP of Airbus and EDF, and the need for data space, and it is already said by Ivo, has several characteristics. The first one, it is paving the way for what will become the vertical AI, which has been recommended by Mario Draghi in his report, which is exactly 1 year old, unfortunately not really put in place, and the season 2 will help on that. But there is another point which we have identified thanks to the cooperation between GaiaX Institute and Dauphine and the Chair Governance and Regulation, which will be illustrated later on by Luca, which is how can we help those data spaces in which you do not have key partners with sufficiently deep pocket to make sure that if at the end of the 36 months they are not yet viable, they will put additional money on the table. And so that will be presented for the first time today by Luca Eustache at the end of the session, after an in-depth review of 27 European projects. And I have to say, you have heard the figures delivered by Ivo. We have spent 1 billion euro already on data spaces. He said the European Commission has already spent 200 or 300 million euro. So far, not so good, okay? And so we cannot enter season 2 with the same kind of question mark. So it's my pleasure to now introduce Véronique Lacour. Véronique is the Executive Vice President, Transformation and Operational Efficiency for EDF, and Véronique was very pleased to receive 2 weeks ago the official letter of the French government saying the funding is now awarded. So congratulations, Véronique.
Thank you so much. We were very pleased to receive that letter with Martin. So I'm going to present you data for Nuclear X, the nuclear data space that we are collectively building, which is at the heart of our industrial project. First, let me introduce EDF and its challenges, and then illustrate the importance of the data space to the nuclear sector. Okay. EDF is a leader in the energy transition. We support our customers in transforming their energy usage from fossil fuel to decarbonized energy. And that decarbonized energy is electricity. In France, the electricity produced by EDF is 99% CO2-free, thanks to nuclear power and renewable energies. To produce most of this electricity, we operate 58 nuclear reactors that were built in the 80s, and the French President, Emmanuel Macron, has set an objective to build new nuclear plants in France. EDF is therefore in the preparation phase of the construction for 6 new reactors with an option for an additional 8. EDF has set a clear target, be able to achieve the construction of the reactor in 70 months. At Hinkley Point in the UK, where we are currently building a new nuclear power plant, up to 5,600 people work on site each day. You can see a picture of what is a construction of nuclear reactor. This requires strong coordination, managing arrival of the worker, schedule, availability, and delivery of material. So the challenge is ambitious, and we have levers. One of those levers is digital technology. Our new EPR2 reactor is digital by design. We are building digital twins of our facilities using artificial intelligence to optimize our operation and working as an extended enterprise with our major suppliers. Our supply chain is broad with many suppliers of very different sizes, international companies and small local suppliers. To be efficient, we need to exchange data with all these suppliers and ensure they can also exchange data with each other. The nuclear sector includes more than 2,050 companies. Today, EDF exchanges data with its Tier 1 supplier, and those Tier 1 suppliers exchange data with their own Tier 1 supplier, which are all Tier 2 or 3 or more. Data format vary. Some information is re-entered, which is not efficient. And as a result, data is not always accessible at the right moment. Our challenge in engineering, in construction, or operation activities is to provide everyone with the right information at the right time to take the right decision. Within 5 years, we estimate we will have 25 million data exchanges per year. It is in this context that the need for a data space became obvious. We are changing paradigm. We collectively decided to build data for Nuclear X, the data space for the nuclear sector. We launched this project with the nuclear ecosystem to provide a secured, sovereign, and trusted space for the entire sector. Data from Nuclear X is a joint project involving major players such as EDF, Framatome, Orano, CEA, and the GFEN, the nuclear sector, and several representative companies from this nuclear sector. A fantastic job has been done under the supervision of Martine, who is here, and I take the opportunity to thank her. And I want to thank Philippe from Airbus. We shared a lot of vision with you and with your team. And this data space will enable smooth and standardized exchanges between partners, large groups, or SMEs. It will allow us to industrialize data exchanges across the entire sector. It is not about creating a centralized data warehouse where data is accessible to everyone. We are building a decentralized architecture where everyone keeps control of its data and chooses what to share with who. So let me give you a few examples of use cases. First example concerns the management of contingencies. You've seen the picture. There are inherent contingencies are inherent to any complex industrial project. A contingency can be a non-conformity of an equipment, for example. It can have significant consequences on the quality and efficiency of operation, and it must be handled rapidly. Traditionally, this process involved many manual exchanges between EDF and its suppliers. The supplier submits the issue report, EDF conducts analysis and provides feedback, and finally action plans are developed until a decision is made on the issue. Thanks to data space, these exchanges will be simpler and will take place throughout the supply chain. By exchanging this information in real time, we will be faster at detecting an issue that could slow down the activity and quicker to address them. EDF and all the supply chain will be in a position to reschedule activities and to avoid delays and prevent workers from waiting. Another very operational example. When you start a construction operation, knowing that, or activity, knowing that everything needed is available is essential. If a piece of equipment is missing, a pipe, a support, a scaffold, several workers may be kept waiting. This means additional delays and costs. We are talking about thousands of activities and thousands of people on site. Interrupting an activity because something is missing is costly. Again, data exchange between different partners helps ensure that we are in the best condition to start and realize an activity. And there is a final example, which may seem very simple: access authorization for employees on site. Facilitating and speeding access authorization requests by exchanging data between different suppliers, whether they are tier 1, 2, or N, from a large international group or to an SME, is also a way to avoid waiting times and speed up projects. All this represents efficiency for all suppliers, as well as for the clients. EDF project managers will have real-time visibility on the progress of activities, making it easier to manage the program. As you can see, our vision for tomorrow is an interconnected nuclear sector. Each stakeholder must be able to access the right data at the right time to make the right decision. This requires trusted data sharing, a single source of truth, and no manual re-entry. This project is, for us, a lever for competitiveness of the entire sector. By standardizing exchanges, we reduce errors, costs, and delays. We also facilitate the integration of newcomers by simplifying their onboarding and giving them the means to fully contribute to the project. So this is how we are collectively building a more agile, safer, and more sovereign nuclear sector. But not everything is simple. To succeed in this digital transformation, we face 4 major challenges. First one, getting SMEs to join and participate. Today, 80% of the 2,500 companies in nuclear sectors are SMEs. Unlike large groups, their digital resources are often limited, which doesn't facilitate their digital integration. These SMEs need support, simple and accessible solutions. They also need controlled and affordable costs to be part of the users. That is exactly what we want to offer with the data space. And I think, Martin, you are talking of that this afternoon. Second, having a common language. Today, each stakeholder uses its own language. Scheduling, work requests, deliverables, formats vary, so do interpretations. This reduces interoperability, reliability, and productivity. Standardization of data is underway, notably with GFN, and will continue to cover a large panel of data. Third, availability. It's obvious. We cannot afford unavailability. Otherwise, the business would stop. So we need 24/7 availability. And last but not least, security and sovereignty. Nuclear sector handles sensitive information. Each data holder must be able to keep full control on its data. As a conclusion, the nuclear data space, Data for Nuclear X, embodies a strong ambition to create an interconnected sector that shares data securely based on a common language so that everyone has access to the right information at the right time to make the right decision. It makes digital technology a major lever for deep transformation and efficiency of our industry. And beyond this technical aspect lays the foundation for an agile, connected, and resilient ecosystem ready to meet the major industrial and climate challenges for the coming years.
Thank you, Véronique, for this very insightful presentation of this project, which we understand is absolutely critical for the challenges ahead for the nuclear energy in France. I would like now to hand over to the other project which has started at the beginning of 2025, which is GaiaX, and it will be introduced by Catherine Jestin and then further developed by Philippe Grosbois. Catherine is the Executive VP of Airbus since 2021. So if you can see the video of Catherine.
Good morning, everyone. I am Catherine Jestin, Executive Vice President Digital for Airbus. Additionally, for the last 2 years, I have had the pleasure to chair the GaiaX Board of Directors. Many thanks to Hubert for giving me the opportunity to speak. Unfortunately, I cannot be present with you today. Airbus has an extensive experience in industrial collaboration among partners with its suppliers and its customers. This is part of its history and its culture. More recently, the need for faster flow of accurate data among the vast network of Airbus stakeholders, we have more than 10,000 suppliers, has become a vital vector of business acceleration. Philippe Grosbois, Airbus GaiaX project leader and general manager of the GaiaX Association, with you today will dive into that in a minute. That is where data spaces are serving the members of each industrial ecosystem, such as GaiaX for aerospace and defense, or Data for Nuclear X for the nuclear industry. The guidelines and the technical blocks for building those data space have been defined. We need to launch the season 2 of the data spaces, getting operational. This will be a collaborative effort involving 3 key actors. The leading association, like GaiaX itself, acting as an orchestrator, at least one operator who will provide and manage the necessary IT foundations like data connectors and identity and access management, and participants who will connect their information system and data using this tool and define contracts for data sharing. This framework is how the system will become operational. The leading association will provide the foundational services, while partners will offer other services, creating an economic ecosystem. This leads me to another key success factor: trust among those actors. This is why the success of GaiaX is a strategic stake for Airbus. GaiaX Trust Framework makes collaboration and the secure exchange of data possible among participants, regardless of their size, their digital environment and location. Making this trust automatic and accessible through freely chosen common criteria, for example, data storage in Europe, is a tremendous step forward. Airbus supports the GaiaX proposal and intends to deploy it operationally in GaiaX, the aerospace and defense data space. It is time for me to hand over back to you. Many thanks, and I wish you a fruitful day at the conference.
Philippe, now your turn. Please deep dive into this project, GaiaX.
Thank you, Hubert. Hello, everyone. So I'm very happy to be with you and having the opportunity to introduce this GaiaX project that's undergoing the creation of a new digital ecosystem for aerospace and defense. And as you have noticed, I'm coming also with my hat of GaiaX, representing an association where we have also a well-known leader of whey industry. And for us, it's very important not to speak only about on behalf of Airbus, but also on behalf of these representative actors of whey sector. Thanks also for your nice word, Véronique. It's right that we have a lot of similarities, I think, and it's a pleasure to exchange. And I think we have a lot of things to learn from each other. So we will continue surely the collaboration together. So thanks for that. And today, in 10 minutes, I would like to disclose to cover three things. First, I think, as proposed by Hubert, to remind why we are doing this investment in such project and why it's so crucial for where transformation in aerospace and defense. The second thing is I would like to give you also how we perceive data space as a game changer to drive this transformation in our sector. And at the end, I think it's maybe good for this conference. I would like to explain a bit how we address the key challenge we have identified to really deploy this kind of things. And it will echo what has been said also this morning in terms of challenge. So to start, why we are doing, we're investing so much effort in such project. The first thing has been mentioned by Catherine. It's all about collaboration. And collaboration is not only cultural, but it's also vital, because when we design, we build, we maintain, we have a complex product like aircraft. It's only possible if we, by getting, collaborating very different type of suppliers to get work together in a very synchronized way. So that's, and for that, we can give some examples. If you want to deliver, as said by Hubert, no, it's more than 770. We are targeting 820 this year, so already 7% more than last year. You need to really embark all your supply chain in a very synchronized way. And to give you a perspective, this growth is not ending now. We are targeting 1,000 aircraft per year in the next 2 years. And why? It's because you need to keep in mind that we have, as said by Hubert, a very huge order backlog supported by a need to replace 75% of our current fleet in the world, and where we add also a growing needs of flight. So that means globally 43,000 aircraft to be delivered in the next 20 years. So it's more than 2,000 per year. And you can imagine that if we deliver, even with competition, if we deliver 1,000, it remains a lot of potential. And each aircraft lost will be a market share lost also for us. So at the end, to give you maybe some examples, we have a very long lead time item to procure. And one idea, one first use case is also to monitor this critical item in the supply chain with shared visibility to be able to react quickly enough, early enough to adapt where production means for such demand variability. But we need also to sometimes resolve a quality issue that could happen at different layers of the supply chain. And of course, if you want to resolve that quicker, you need to share data in a more efficient way. And these data are sensitive, so that's where you understand the data space come into the game. Another element, I think, which is important for us, is a trusted traceability. It has been mentioned this morning also, the need to access to trustful data. In our domain, we are a very regulated industry. We need to ensure compliance for quality reasons, for certification reasons, but also for global trade reasons. We have a lot of export control regulation to comply with. And you understand today in the geopolitical context, it's even more important. And then we need to be able to cascade, to flow down information across the supply chain and to ensure these data are really trustful and coming from the right originator. It's also extremely important if we want to develop use case for sustainability, and I will come back in a minute on this topic with new aircraft, but already with the current aircraft, we would like to, we reduce already environmental impact by enabling recycling and also to help to organize the air traffic a bit different way. And all these things also required a lot of exchange of data. So that's the second big element. And the last one has been already mentioned a bit by Hubert, but sustainability and environmental impact more precisely is an extremely important priority for Airbus and for our sector. And we already made a lot. If we compare with aircraft 20 years ago, we already reduced by 50% the impact in terms of CO2. But we have also taken some strong commitments for 2035 by reducing again by 46% the impact of our product. And for that, we need to develop a new aircraft, new technology. And for that, of course, it can be only successful if we could design with a strong, innovative supplier. It could be existing supplier, but also we need also new innovative players. And to invite new players, you also need to reduce the barrier entry to collaborate. So for me, so that's the key to give you a flavor of what we are doing and why it's so important to ensure this collaboration. But all these things are possible by exchanging data, and we share also a collective concern. We make work together competitors, and it's all about what I have called simply the data sharing control. And that's where we believe the data space play a very important role to make a difference. So we can see that we made this big step by now moving from an industry project like by Airbus to an industry project like by an association. So you can read already the first executive member. I'm very happy, by the way, that we have a representative of Boost Aerospace with us in the room, because it's these actors, and we can mention especially Boost Aerospace, bring a lot of experience already of what we have done in terms of collaboration in our sector. And the idea is to build the next step together based on this experience. So, try to go to the next one. Yes, no, it's a bit quick. So now, if I enter to the second part, is more to understand what are finally the differentiator, why we believe it's a game changer. So just with a simple picture, up to now, the principle of collaboration was really cascading information from top to down, and always guided by the OEM in the center. So, and now the big difference for us is to enable direct exchange between actors. And I think it has been mentioned by Véronique also for the sector of EDF. If we really want to equip our supply chain to mitigate risk, we need to enable each actors to exchange and collaborate in an efficient manner. And for us, there are 4 reasons to be highlighted why it's a game changer. The first one, the 2 first ones are a bit obvious for you maybe, but is already a big step for us, is really base exchange on trust, on the trustful framework. So that's where framework like GaiaX make a big difference for us. And it's important because it's an international one. We have also the fact that we have a decentralized architecture also, which is very important to ensure that the data are not stored in a common place. We have also the fact that we have created the association, which ensure this independent governance to govern the rule of the game for our data space. And the last but not the least, which has been mentioned already, is the fact that we need to establish a common language with standards to enable really the automatic exchange and efficient exchange. Which the 2 other ones are a bit more specific for our industry. More specific, I don't know, but at least specific for us, is the fact that we have a complex supply chain where we need to make collaborate not only a customer and a supplier, but also different layers of the supply chain. So if we want to trace from the origin a titanium certificate, we need to go sometimes up to 7 layers in the supply chain. And the last and not the least, it's we have also the big topic of SME, the small and medium enterprise. I know it will be covered later today. It's really a big question how to embark them. For us, it's also it's even more than 80. I think we are close to 90% of our supply chain is small and medium enterprise, and we can only succeed if they are synchronized and they deliver as committed. So to conclude, I share this. I would like to share also based on the challenge we have identified and what we are doing today. And I summarize that in 4 blocks. The first one, and by listening you this morning, to be honest, I heard a lot about what we do in Europe, but in our industry, we really think internationally from the day one. So for us, you have noticed that we have an American partners with us, and it's really important to ensure that what we are doing will be adopted internationally. So the first thing is to have this governance, which is not only in Europe, but really inclusive. The second one, and I thank a lot the government and the public funding for that, because we have been supported by BPI on one side in France, but also in Germany by the BMWI, that help, of course, to accelerate this kind of project and to embark people, the key actors in this kind of challenge. And the last one is to federate thanks to by aligning priority, especially for SME. The second block, it's I call it simplify for adoption, but behind there is all the question of the technical maturity and simplification. Thanks, Sarah, for mentioning, insisting on this simplification, because that's definitely the key word for me to ensure that where data space approach will be really adopted, not only by big company, but also by the small company. And it's right to say that the framework, GaiaX framework, and also all these verified identity journey to obtain this kind of certificate is complex, and we need to demystify that to ensure real adoption, efficient adoption. The third one, and we don't speak about it too much, but I think it's essential based on the experience we had with the first element, is what I call the last mile of data access. Because it's nice to have the intent to exchange data with partners, but sometimes it's very difficult to retrieve the data from your one system or to integrate the data you receive in your one system. And for that, you need to multiply to integrate multiple types of backends and to prepare the data. It has been mentioned this morning how to prepare data to be exchanged. Here we really spend a lot of work, and I'm very happy that this afternoon we spent a bit of time with Jakob and Jeremy, because that's where we try to use potentially AI to help us to prepare this data to be exchanged or to be digested. So that's definitely an important topic to be successful at the end. And the last one is a bit more well-known, is a viable economic model, as said by Hubert. We need to demonstrate that we are viable after 3 years. It's not easy. It's a complex model with a lot of stakeholders, and we need to be innovative also. But that's the challenge we took, to have at least a cash flow break-even in 3 years that will be necessary to be sustainable. So thanks a lot for the opportunity, and I'm really looking forward for the coming discussion, because I think you will address a lot of this point later today.
Thank you, Philippe. So you have seen 2 examples in absolutely strategic industry for Europe and France, and the principles which have been governing the preparation of this project have been the one invented really by Université Paris-Dauphine and GaiaX for what can make a data space successful. But you do not have always big guys with deep pocket to help if it is a little bit late. And we have had some example last year, and Ivo was mentioning 1 billion again spent. Many of these projects have suffered not to have economic principle defined upfront. So the major task which has been accomplished since 1 year by the chair, governance and regulation, has been to interview 27 European projects, and I am very happy to give the floor to Luca, who will give us the first hint about what they have seen.
Thank you, Hubert, for this nice introduction, and I'm pleased today to introduce you the recent development of our work at Paris-Dauphine with GaiaX Institute on the economic model of data sharing ecosystem. So we study, as Hubert mentioned, 27 European cases of data sharing ecosystem in various sectors, and recently we try to focus on trajectories of data sharing ecosystem. Why trajectories? First, let's recall a quick definition of data sharing ecosystem. They are organizational arrangements that are based on two key features. First of all, a shared technical infrastructure. You need tech to have a data sharing ecosystem, but you also need a collective governance to sustain your data sharing ecosystem. And those collective arrangements, they are not static, they are dynamic. They evolve across time through three phases of development that we laid in the previous version of this work, that are emergence. Let's say it's when you are like putting in place your first use case, diffusion when you are trying to enlarge this use case and to bring new alternative use case to this one, and enlargement when you go beyond the initial scope of the data sharing ecosystem. And when we are mentioning trajectory, we are asking ourselves how those data sharing ecosystem can transition from one phase to another and how they can progress within those phases. And we identify 6 critical factors that underlie the sustainability of the ecosystem trajectories. Before entering those 6 critical factors, I just think it's useful to go a little bit on a definition part. So here you see a blueprint of the functional form of a data sharing ecosystem. For sure, it's a simplified version. They are much more complicated than that. And here I represent a symmetric ecosystem. What I call by symmetric is that you can see that the actor has the same size. This is a homogeneous set of actors, of participants, without key actor, and I will go a little bit later on what's going on when there is a key actor or key actors, if there is several. Let's start by the actor. So the actor of data sharing ecosystem, they are mainly firms, organizations, institutions, or even individuals that try to collaborate together to create use cases. On this graph, the use cases are represented by the color code. So you have purple use cases and green use cases, so you have 2 here. And this collaboration is made to create use cases I was mentioning, and this is the deep root of the value creation within the ecosystem. You don't have value within an ecosystem if you don't have proper use cases that can deliver this value. So the relation between those actors will be intermediated by what we call the technical intermediary. So he is the person in charge of providing the technological tools, the technological enabler, such as a platform, a credential manager, identity manager, to the different actors in order to foster a seamless data exchange. I want to recall here that this is important, that this technical intermediary can or not be neutral. If he is neutral, meaning under the regulation of the DGA, then we will call it a neutral intermediary, but you have some intermediaries that are not neutral. It's important to recall them. Those use cases, they do not appear ex nihilo, let's say. They need to be orchestrated by someone that will give an impulsion, that will give a direction to the value creation and how to bring people around the same table to enter this process of sharing data and services. And this person in charge of orchestrating, it's called the orchestrator, quite simple. He will be in charge of the governance of the use cases. You can have different orchestrators for different use cases. One can orchestrate several use cases. And there will be also an orchestrator at the ecosystem level that will be in charge of making sure that different use cases can evolve together and that the money still flow to sustain the ecosystem. You can see that here the actors are in charge and they participate to the governance of the use cases and the ecosystem. It's likely to happen when there is no key actor. The last thing that I want to recall on this graph is that all this mechanic bringing together, it's what we call the economic model of the ecosystem, which can be different from the business model of the technical intermediary. How the technical intermediary is getting money is different than how value are created within the ecosystem. So what's going on when there is a key actor? If one of you wonder who can be a key actor, just look at my right side, who is sitting here. So basically, when you have a key actor in the ecosystem, it will be a major actor in the value chain because he's central due to his position, because he has deep pocket, as Hubert was mentioning. He can subsidize, for instance, the technical intermediary, which make most of the things more easy, because then you don't have to seek for money, you have someone that can pay for it, and you will have a privileged access to the governance of the ecosystem and the use cases. Yet, it do not come without cost, and I will tell you later on what type of cost can be associated to the presence of a key actor. Let's start with the condition. So, I just want to say here that there is, let's say, a zero condition is, do we have any type of interest about bringing our data together to deliver services? If yes, then you can go for the first condition, which is how we will align our interest. So basically, as we were mentioning, and we had a good example before, in value chain, you can have a heterogeneous set of actors, people with different positions, with different market power, with different economic power, that has different interests. And if you want them to collaborate, you need to make sure that they look in the same direction, let's say. So one way of doing it is to showcase for every actor, and especially for SMEs, we talked a lot about SMEs this morning, that they will gain something about participating to your use case. The lever that the DSC, so the data sharing ecosystem, has to do so is for sure having a strategic orchestration to share a vision, to onboard participant in designing the use cases, and also having a tech that is made to foster the creation of use case with interoperability, transparency, and for sure security, but we will talk a little bit more about that later on. This condition is maybe more sensitive in asymmetric ecosystem because you have a really different set of players, so it will be more of a burden to align them, to look at the same direction. And for sure, it's critical at the beginning of the ecosystem, but you will need to ensure that those interests remain aligned all along the life cycle of your data sharing ecosystem. The second condition is that at some point you need money. You need money, but in an innovation process. What we are saying by that is that you need to found different things. First of all, the initial fixed cost. You need to found your infrastructure, you need to found your initiative to bring people together and to create use case. But you have also recurrent cost. You need to upgrade the system, you need to allow for more people to join, so you have some recurrent fixed cost. And those costs, you have to pay them, let's say, in an uncertain process. Data sharing ecosystem, they are characterized by an innovation process. People are joining together. They don't really know what they will do at the end of the day, but they want to collaborate. They will try, they will make some error, and then they will refine, iteratively speaking, their use cases and the value that they are created. So what the orchestrator can do here to mitigate this condition is to ensure that the level of investment match the operational activity of the data sharing ecosystem. There is no need of starting with a heavy infrastructure at the beginning if you only have one use cases, for instance, but having technical features and the level of investment that match the need of the participant and the use cases. And once the use cases will try to be more large and you will have more participants, then you can upgrade the technical feature and upgrade the investment level. Within your ecosystem, to help with this condition, if you have a key actor, for sure, he can absorb the cost. But there is a risk of dominance, and I will talk to it in the last condition, that need to be taken into account. When this investment condition is important is at the earliest stage and all along the life cycle of the ecosystem. Why is the earliest stage? Because of the chicken and egg problem that is quite common. Here you need infrastructure, so you need to pay to create value, but you need value to pay. So the beginning of the ecosystem development is critical on that note. And as I was mentioning, you can have a central trade-off. If you are someone with deep pocket, he can pay for the cost, but then in terms of interest, it will be important to make sure that everyone agree with the imbalance in terms of power within the ecosystem. The third condition, enlarging and deepening, here you can see that there is a shadow of the two first conditions here, is that the ecosystem will develop and you will need to integrate new participants, and the participants that are already here need to be more and more integrated within the ecosystem. So you have first to keep the interest aligned, as I was mentioning, and you need to keep the money flow to pay for those costs of integration and organizational costs. But also you have to ask yourself some question about openness and selectivity, at which point we should open the ecosystem and bring new partner, when we know that in the innovation process, the link need to be tight in order to develop some product between participants. So here, the role of the orchestrator will be to manage what we call economy of scope. Basically, economy of scope is to say that, okay, I have a first use case, and the tech and the investment that I've made in this first use case can be reused to develop another use case. And then you lower the cost, the marginal cost of creating use cases, and you lower the cost of integrating new participants and integrating more and more participants within your data sharing ecosystem. For sure, you still need to adopt a reflexive design and ongoing reassessment, because the first decision or the first direction that you've took with your data sharing ecosystem, maybe you will need to shift or to pivot a little bit with the development, and then you need to make this being possible. So it will be a condition that matters a lot at the diffusion stage, and it will be more sensitive in asymmetric ecosystem where like your actors, your company within the ecosystem are different need, and they don't have the same like technological maturity, for instance. So you will need as an orchestrator to tailor technical solution to make them more integrated within your use cases and to bring more participants in the table. The fourth condition is dealing with increasing risk. Again, you see the shadow of the last condition here is the more and more your participants will be integrated within your ecosystem, the more risk you will have, they will face within the ecosystem. You have the technological risk. What if the processes are not secure? What if can someone access my data? But you also have more strategic risk. Okay, I'm entering a data sharing ecosystem. I have my competitor in the same ecosystem. How can I be sure that what I will develop will not be accessed by my competitor to harm my power on the market? And for sure, those risks are more stringent when you are dealing with personal data, with health data, or with heavily sensitive data. Here, the role of the orchestrator is to take a step-by-step approach with an ongoing adaptation to make sure that the risks are always balanced. It's kind of equilibrium the cost and benefit of the ecosystem, making sure that the level of risk do not overcome the benefit that people will bring from the ecosystem. And here you have technical level, you can ensure cyber security within your ecosystem. You can ensure that every processes are safe and people can join them safely without taking too much risk, let's say. They are present in all the type of ecosystem, being more sensitive in ecosystem dealing with sensitive data for sure, and the risk increase as the integration of participants increase in the ecosystem. The fifth condition has been recalled by Éric this morning by saying that we don't want, in fact, to create, I mean, maybe we want to create a data market, but it's not where we are going. Here, my point is to say that data sharing ecosystem need to avoid what I call the transaction trap. So when it comes to data sharing, the value of data sharing lies in the use cases and in the utilization of data, not in the transaction per se. What I'm saying by that is that in economics, we consider a price as a good price if it can convey the good information about the valuation of the good. This is not likely to happen with data because the value is created post-transaction when people are starting to use the data to develop services. Don't get me wrong, I am not assuming that you can't have transaction within your data sharing ecosystem. You can have transaction. For instance, if the price is to cover the cost of delivering data, that can be costly. But the use cases should be built around this logic of cooperation and not only about transaction. Also, I can add on that note at this moment that this is where you can see another type of difference between the economic model of data sharing ecosystem and the business model of the intermediary. Because, for instance, you can have transaction within your data sharing ecosystem and the technical intermediary can finance himself by taking a share of the price of this transaction at every time. But it will not underlie the business model, the economic model, sorry, of the data sharing ecosystem. One way and one lever that the DSA has to do so is to integrate stakeholders to design use cases, meaning The point is not to construct a broad, open data catalog where people can do data shopping. It will not work like that, but in fact to sit around the table and to discuss about what we want to do with those data and how we can create value and how we will share this value among us. It's important at every phase of development. It's like a general condition, and it's maybe more important in asymmetric ecosystem where people don't know them as well as when they are like more close and when they are more homogeneous, and then they maybe have this tendency to rely on a price to mitigate the relation. And the sixth and the last condition is to mitigate lock-in. We were talking about key actor and risk of dominance. When you are entering a data sharing ecosystem, you will develop as an organization specific asset to evolve during your path in the data sharing ecosystem. You will modify your information system, you will modify your process and all the organizational logic to be compatible with this data sharing ecosystem. And this investment, those assets, we call them specific because they only have value within the ecosystem. But if you fear of losing control over the ecosystem or the direction of the ecosystem, then you can feel what we call a lock-in effect, where your asset will be locked within the ecosystem and you can feel trapped. Here, the role of the orchestrator is super important, is to prevent monopolistic capture but ensuring efficiency, to reassure everyone that the governance can still be collective and that they will not be locked within the ecosystem. One can say we should just despecify the asset. Probably it's possible for one part if we focus on technological solutions such as interoperability, relying on the software that are open source, for instance. I mean, there is a lot of way of seeing it, but there is still a part of them that can't be despecified and they are really proper to the ecosystem in itself. So here, this condition is more important in the enlargement phase when people are like heavily integrated within the ecosystem, and they are more significant for sure when there is a key actor that is present. Here I show you a graph where all the conditions are shown in the life cycle of the ecosystem. This graph is to show that, in fact, data sharing ecosystems are dynamic objects, and the economic model and those conditions, you will have to deal with them with different conditions at different stages of the ecosystem. So there is some challenges that need to be tackled down at the emergence, but once the ecosystem will grow and enlarge its activity, there will still have some challenges that need to be taken into account. And I want to conclude this presentation by an offer for the data sharing ecosystem that are present here. If you are ready and you want to challenge your economic model, especially Joelle and I would be pleased to discuss this during the Economic Theatre at Porto for the occasion of the GaiaX Summit, the 20th November. Thank you.
So, as you have understood, this is the recipe for Season 2 data spaces, okay? This is the way we see it. We have learned, and thanks to the investigation done on the 27 existing European projects, what to do, what not to do. What I would like is to give the floor for a few minutes only, because I'm sure otherwise Éric will ask me to short. I would like to get the feedback of Véronique and Philippe on what they have heard, and maybe get one question about potential new data spaces, how they feel about that. Véronique, please.
Well, I was very pleased to hear from Airbus, but we've been working together for a long time, so I knew a bit what you were going to say. I was very, very interesting from the presentation of Luca and all these good recipes to succeed in putting in place a data space and having that ecosystem work with all the partners. And I'm very interested in this 20th of November thing to stress our model to see whether or not it will succeed. So thank you. It's not a question, but I definitely wanted to tell you that your presentation was very interesting.
Philippe?
Yes, so thanks. It's a Also, I was happy to recognize a lot of similarities between we're challenge. And thanks also, Lucas, for structuring also all our thoughts in a very good way. Maybe I have a question, because and for me it's a burning question for us, is you mentioned the critical mass to really make the leap, to have something a bit more viable and a bit stronger to pass to the next step. Do I evaluate some criteria for this critical mass? Or can you give us some insight?
We don't have a precise measure saying you need 10 participants. You need 10 or 20 participants. On that note, we don't know. The point is, how many, like, what is the share of person within the value chain you need on board to deliver value? Can you start with only like 10 or like a few % of the value chain, or do you need to onboard everyone at the same time to deliver value? And I think that's the critical question to ask. And then, depending on the answer to this question, you will have different strategy to try to onboard them within.
You know that you have reached the critical mass where it's impossible to do business with you or without using the data sharing ecosystem.
Okay, so before we close this session, I would like to remind you that there are still 3 dates out of which you can put a project of data space to France 2030. These 3 dates are November 2025, June 2026, and November 2026. And what we are offering to those of you interested is to bring to both Luca and Joelle their project in Porto in such a way you be given a chance before you face people like me at the very last time when you have to present your project and prepare yourself and flex your muscles. Is there any question on this? Okay, only if it is a very short question.
I have 2 questions. One for...
One only, sir. One only.
One only?
Yes.
EDF by Véronique Lacour. What is the evolution of the governance of a unified organization bringing together nuclear safety, hydraulic safety, security and health to accelerate the revival of nuclear power?
I'm not sure it's a question about data. It's not a question. So, for our organization here, the way we are organizing our data space work is based on the 2 associations. One association for the people who are the client of the data space, and I mentioned some names like EDF, Framatome, CEA, GFEN. And another organization for the people who will create the data space and will operate the data space. So we are currently in a process of putting in place those 2 different associations or 2 different organizations, and we will see how we will continue on creating this ecosystem.
Thank you, Véronique. Horst, if you want to raise your point.
Yeah, Horst Ellermann, I'm editor at CRO magazine in Germany. And I have a question to Véronique and Philippe. What's your best argument to convince small and medium businesses? And the background of my question is, in Germany we have a lot of these small, medium businesses, and they all don't like what GaiaX is doing right now, because they say we don't benefit anything of that. And if we jump on the train, okay, some do, especially at Catena X, because BMW forces them to do so. And I would like to hear better arguments than just to force them.
We will have a full session on that this afternoon, Horst, but I would like to listen to both of them.
Well, for SMEs, we are not talking about GaiaX to SMEs. Yeah, it's open. Yeah. it's fine. We are not talking about GaiaX to SMEs. We are talking to SMEs on the value they will get from using that ecosystem. There are use cases that will bring value to those SMEs, and usually those small companies don't have all the ecosystem, their internal ecosystem, to embark in the digital transformation. So it's for them a way to have a step in their digital transformation. So it's both a question of getting value from the use cases and being part of the digital transformation and the upcoming use cases with AI and everything. But we are not talking about GaiaX to these SMEs.
Philippe, you...
Yes. Maybe to complete a bit, yes, the first thing is definitely on the way we present the story. Definitely, we don't present the story to an SME with GaiaX first and on a conceptual manner. The challenge we have, honestly, is to invite them to the table, because usually they have not time for that. So it's difficult already to have the right words. But maybe the first thing is the first things we need to present to them is the way the collaboration could be more efficient, because today the collaboration is not an option, especially in our domain, and then sometimes it's very manual, so we need to find a way to explain it will be more efficient. It's already a gain for them. The second one is the regulation is quite complex, and we believe that with such ecosystems we can help them also to comply with new regulation rules. So that's a way also to sell it. And the last is depending on the type of SME, because I mentioned before, we also would like to invite new, potentially innovative players in the domain for the new aircraft or to be more competitive. And here it's a question to reduce the barrier entry to our market. So for me, it's also a good argument for them to come and join the ecosystem. But to be honest, the question needs to be deep dive a bit more, and we have not all the answers.
Or just to reassure you, among the remaining challenges, this one is #1 of the challenge, not special to Germany, by the way. Yves, you had a question. It didn't work.
Thank you. I am Yves Léon. I'm expert for judges in France and Europe, and I've been involved in digital since my studies quite long ago. You mentioned something which is very interesting. Speaking of the French culture, you mentioned cooking recipes, and I have a question on these recipes. Have you any recipe for the side dish we need to manage, which is business secrecy? And my question is for EDF and Airbus. You manage with technical secrecies, you can't share them with your competitors. How are you going to manage this point? We have this point when we're working for the Justice Department.
Okay, quick answer, Véronique and Philippe, please.
Yes, so if I understood well, the question is all about sensitive data to be shared or not shared. And for us, the big argument we have is behind the word trust, the famous trust framework. And then there are two elements. The first one is by design, we propose a decentralized architecture that by design don't put all the data in a common pot. So for us, it's always a direct peer-to-peer exchange of data that prevent let's say, leakage of secret information to another player not targeted to be informed. The second one is the transparent governance. So, of course, if the orchestrator is in the hands of one actor, we can always suspect that the rules could be broken somewhere or misused. And the last one is, I think that's where the GaiaX has a very important role, is how we manage these this trust framework with verifiable identities, and we ensure that when we exchange something with someone else, we are sure from with who we interact and from who we receive trusted data. So that's the way we tackle that. Yeah.
Véronique, anything to add?
Yeah, just to add that in those decentralized architecture, we don't share, well, we share data, but we don't have a large data warehouse where all the data is stored. Each actor keeps its data, and you choose the data you want to share, and you choose the people with who you want to share that data. So everyone is not sharing everything with everyone. That's an important point. And I agree.
Just to conclude on that note, there is an attitude of mine, would you like to share or are you hostile to share? And I believe beside which side you are in the Atlantic, you may have a different opinion on the topic. And I would like to say we are proud to like to share in Europe, okay? I would like with that to make a great applause for our speakers. And hand over with apologies to Joelle for the next session.
Okay, thank you. Now we are entering it, let's say, in another phase, and the idea behind this session is to see the dynamics of emergence and development. And the idea is to show concretely how data sharing ecosystems are, in fact, even Lucas shows it theoretically, but they are highly diverse with a multitude of use cases and underlying economic models. What our three speakers have in common is that they are working on use cases and ecosystems that have already demonstrated their ability to create value. The recipe in this session is that data from different sources and stakeholders are combined to create a new use or new uses. These innovations must benefit the various stakeholders. Our three speakers rely on different type of data. Spatial data for the first, personal data for the second, and finally, agricultural data for the last. And we have tried to vary the scenarios. The question of data monetization, Luca tells us some principles may arise, and the idea is to show it, but even if it's not a general rule. We will see it with Jacques concerning spatial data. The same applies to the status of data intermediaries, which is at the heart of the DGA. We will have one case, the only one I have had the opportunity to discover, where the strict status of neutral data intermediary within the meaning of the DGA have a real significance. Coincidentally, there is a player who is also the CEO of the French Association of Data Intermediary, and Xavier will be presenting, I will present him after. And finally, Eva, who is just near, will present us another case outside France. Maybe not everybody knows ILVO Institute, but she will explain what is ILVO Institute. And they bring together a significant number of farmers, some services, and some data, and we will see how and why. So the first presentation is from Jacques. Jacques is not with us, but I suppose he's online. Whoa.
Yes, good morning, Joelle.
OK. Est-ce que peut-être qu'il pourrait être... voilà. Oui. Merci. So,
I'm sharing the... Sorry.
Yes, you are online. So just a few words to present him. Jacques Beas-Garcia. Jacques has been working for several years on developing the spatial data economy within the CNES strategy department. Between space and digital, he has defined and implemented a strategy to support this transformation. He's working to develop a French ecosystem and a real alternative to non-European solutions. This would enable French and European industry to take full advantage of the data produced by public and private space infrastructure. Jacques, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Joelle, for the invitation. Sorry, I was not able to attend physically, but I'm glad to be here today to share with you a quick overview of the space data economy. To start, I'd like to highlight 2 points about space data. First, if I had to describe the role of the space industry in the data economy, I would say that the space sector is, above all, a data provider. We are not an end user ecosystem like agriculture or mobility. We are the ones that are generating the data they could use. With the 3 images I'm about to show, I want to highlight how both space agencies and industry players have developed satellite infrastructure and consistently improve its performance to deliver high-quality space data to meet market demands. The first image here shows France's early Earth observation system, launched in 1981, the first spot satellite. This satellite produced optical imagery with a spatial resolution of 10 meters, meaning that 1 pixel covers a 10-meter area on the ground. With the second picture, in 2021, Airbus launched the Pléiades Neo constellation, which delivers an optical imagery with a 40 centimeter resolution. You can notice the improvement in performance. In this picture, this level of detail allows a user to even count individual people in a scene. And most recently, in July, Airbus and CNES launched a new system, the CO3D system. That system will be able to deliver soon 3D models of Earth in near real time with a spatial resolution of 1 meter. And in the near future, we are even talking about delivering data with a resolution of 10 centimeters. But when we talk about space data, we are not talking only about optical system, but also about radar system, altimetry system, meteorology systems, and radio frequency detection systems. I could also talk about navigation system that gives you location and time information. I hope these examples clearly illustrate that our industry's primary role is to generate high-quality space data. Now, I would like to deal with where those space data come from. Space data come from naturally from a satellite, but it comes from 2 types of systems. Historically, space data has been produced by satellites program, developed by space agency with the industrial support, of course, and for the scientific and defense purposes. On the left side of this slide, you can see an example of satellites that have been developed under EU, ESA, or CNES scientific programs. You've probably heard of the Copernicus program, the EU Earth Observation Flagship program, which is delivering a huge amount of data. These programs are publicly funded, and as you will easily understand, the data access policy is linked to the final use. Data access is totally open for scientific programs and totally restricted for defense use, as you can understand. Since 2000, however, a commercial market has emerged and historical industry players like Airbus in Europe began developing, but Airbus geointelligence began the other part, the space part of Airbus. Began developing satellites for commercial purposes, and the market kept growing since then. Mainly thanks to the digital revolution and the rise of the new space ecosystem, largely composed of startups. Today, as you can see on the right part of the slide, there are more than 70 companies delivering space data, mainly based in US, Europe, and China. Players, that new players are companies like Planet, Spire, ICEYE, or Unseen Lab. These commercial operators are constantly developing new offers, new data offers, and new business models. We were talking this morning about the economy and business models. I think that can give you an example here about the business model that are developed in space data activity. These business models are based on classic metrics such as investment made, addressable market size, data characteristic. As you can imagine, a 10-meter imagery doesn't have the same value as a 30-centimeter one. The value of this data in the value chain, a data set could provide 90% of the value, but it also can provide only 10% of the final value of the service. And it's also linked to other conditions like license of utilization and so on. Naturally, these operators adapt their business model to meet evolving market demands. For instance, it was a topic that we discussed with Joelle. To give you an example of pricing model, a high resolution optical image, like the one from Pléiades Neo, 40 centimeters resolution, is sold as a product based on a per square kilometer pricing model. For Pléiades Neo, the public price is around 25 euro per square kilometers. After this introduction, let me now share some market figures. These figures come from specialized consulting firms like Nova Space. As you can see, we can divide the market into two main segments. The first one is the raw data market. It's valued at $2.1 billion. This market is dominated by two players, Airbus and the French actor, French European actor, and Maxar, the US actor. As you can see, almost every sector are using space data, not only defense, but also agriculture, finance, insurance, energy, and so on. The second part of the second segment of this market, it's the value-added services. It's valuated at $3.3 billion. As Luca mentioned it, we believe that the true value lies in these services, but their development depends on creating new use cases. That's what we are trying to do with the Connect by CNES program. I will get back to this on my next slide. Looking at the last chart, we can see that defense remains the leading end user. But around 2020, you can see new lines appear in the chart. This sector experienced a very important growth since then. This sector is the finance sector. why this happened? I think that because the data is completely revolutionizing how investors are making their investment decision. And for that, this sector needs timely, reliable data, and in space data for them is a real asset. This is a sector that I used to call now data-driven sector. It has become a key sector for us, and that's the kind of sector we are looking for. We believe that insurance could be the next one. Let's now shift to the value chain. This slide shows the space data value chain. Nothing new for many of you, as you are dealing with the data value chain all day. But I'd like to highlight something. Around 10 years ago, downstream activities became a strategic priority for CNES. But before that, what you have to understand is that it was not the case. We were focusing on delivering data and not on what end user would do with it. And Luca mentioned it also. I think it was a huge mistake, but fortunately, today, more than 60 people in CNES are dedicated to exploiting, unlocking the value of space data by collecting it, processing it, making it actionable, usable for data fusion, for AI, and of course for end user application. As I mentioned it previously, we created a dedicated program called Connect by CNES. Its goal is to foster innovation, connect the space ecosystem with other sectors. I maybe make a parallel with the Luca presentation. The CNES, the space agency, could be the orchestrator of the space data ecosystem in France, of course. It is also a quite useful tool to collect and better understand end user needs and prepare next generation of space data systems. What we can see now, after a decade of supporting the downstream ecosystem, several leaders have emerged in their respective fields. CLS, for example, for maritime surveillance and sustainable fisheries management. QuantCube in the field of macroeconomic analysis. Kairos in the field of energy, or Preligence for defense intelligence, which is now part of Safran AI. Value-added services often rely on more than just space data. In most cases, insurance, agriculture, energy, and so on, provider needs to combine satellite data with other sources, like IoT sensor, social media, public database, and so on. As you can understand, the more specific and complex are the user needs, the more effort is required to identify, combine, and extract the right information to generate high value for this end user, this customer, if I could say. And the value could be an economic value, but also efficiency in the ecosystem or other value. But at the end, this value and the business model, of course, of the service that helps end user to decide whether to make or buy a solution, which means to succeed, service provider must deeply understand their customer needs. Here is an example from the QuantCube company. QuantCube is an 80 people company dedicated to data analysis for financial sector. This company builds macroeconomic indicators by merging and analyzing various types of data. What you see on this line is one example. For the service illustrated here, QuantCube aims to develop a service dedicated to private equity players that will enable them to better assess the risk associated with their investment. This is an example among many others. Let's focus now on the middle of the value chain, maybe the heart of space data space. As I said previously, our position is quite specific, as we can be qualified of data space. So what we have to deal with to make this space data space real? I think that first we need to understand public and commercial needs from other ecosystem, of course. And establish a strong governance model to organize public needs. The second point is to create an easy access to raw data, as the offer is quite large now. The third is to turn raw data into value-added services. And the fourth is to organize data and service offer to match real user demand. What we are doing in France to succeed on creating this French space data space, we are currently working on 3 initiatives. A national governance framework for public needs. This initiative involves ministries, regional authorities, and public institutions. We work together to identify common needs and align budget accordingly. As mentioned by Hubert, we also work on developing data economy thanks to France 2030, France 2030 investment plan. We succeed on launching several calls for tenders to support value-added services based on space data for public and core customers, such as maritime surveillance, macroeconomic indicators, and more. All of these projects must deliver operational services, industrial consortium, produce indicators that help public end user to make faster and smarter decision in their public policy work. It's an example of how public actors can use data economy for their own benefits and at the same time support the data economy ecosystem. The third is about the trusted third party to operate this mechanism. A public institution like IGN or CNES could take on this role when it comes to public needs, but it could also be a private initiative. And since 2020, we have been working on a space data intermediation platform, the Space Data Marketplace, in partnership with the GaiaX company, well-known company here. If you like to know more about the Space Data Marketplace, I'll let GaiaX CEOs, Laurent or Fabrice, I think that I saw that Laurent were in the room, share further detail about this company and its development.
Thanks a lot, Jacques. It was very interesting, but maybe it's. I ask for the others just not take so long because we don't have any more time. So please, thanks a lot, Jacques. Xavier Drilhon, CEO of MiTrust, is a digital professional. Over the course of a 25-year career, he has acquired extensive experience in a variety of professional fields, including international consulting, high-security printing, Internet of Things, smart card, digital security industry. You have all the panorama. Before establishing MiTrust, He served for 5 years as CEO of Hubert Technologies, now IDEMIA. Xavier co-founded MiTrust to bring trust to the digital world by enabling users to share authentic personal data under their strict control while enabling full transparency and end-to-end privacy. He has been the president of Association for Data Intermediary since April 25. He took over from Sébastien Picardat, who was the first president, and set up the association in November 23. Xavier, the floor is yours.
Well, many thanks, Joelle, for inviting me. MiTrust is still a very small company, and I'm very impressed to be among speakers with very large company. And you mentioned this morning, Sarah, that we were the first to receive this label, the label. And ARCEP had to go through verification that our company comply with the requirements set in the DGA in terms of neutrality, in terms of non-discrimination, in terms of security in particular. Although on that topic, probably the level of security, of cybersecurity, could be even enhanced given the sensitivity of the data that we transfer. We had a very interesting morning where we looked at the evolution of the regulatory framework in Europe, and we mentioned a large-scale project around industrial data. I'm here to speak about something slightly different, but personal data. And to keep you awake, before lunch, it's important to understand we're talking about you. We're talking about your personal data. And in fact, in our day-to-day life, there are many opportunities where we need to share personal data. It could be to open a bank account, could be to apply for a consumer loan, it could be to rent an apartment, could be to make an insurance claim, and even to open a player account if you want to bet on how many goals Dembele is going to score in the next game of PSG. I'm a big football fan, as you can imagine. So in all these cases, you have to share personal data. And in the day-to-day life, in the digital world, it's always the same. You need to fill in questionnaires, or you need to provide supporting documents of what you say. And I don't know what is your experience, but in my view, it's a rather long process. The information you provide will have to be checked. Look for fraud. It goes through OCR system to extract data, to normalize data, and chances are you won't have provided the information that is needed by the system. And therefore, you will be asked again to provide information. And it's lengthy, sometimes frustrating for the user, and for sure for the company or the organization that is collecting the data. This process is rather costly and sometimes inefficient. We believe we can do something different. And the approach of MiTrust has been such that we can ultimately deliver the promise of digital, which is to have immediate answer to our need, which is not the case with this process. So we look at things differently. Say to ourselves, well, in fact, the data that we want to provide, they are held by reliable parties, whether they are banks, they are utilities, they are public administration, the data is somewhere. Why don't we help user to share the data, obviously under the strict control, in a simple way? And thanks to our system, there is no need to upload an app, there is no account to be created, and the user remain in full control. So for the user, it's fairly easy, it's transparent. For the organization, the promise is to receive reliable data, authentic data in real time that they can immediately process. And at the end, all the data is deleted from our system. Okay? So let's see how it looks like. Here we've taken a very simple example of sharing a proof of address. It starts at the application or the website of our customer, where the user is offered the possibility, I insist, the possibility to use MiTrust to share its personal data. Depending on the business needs of the organization, the user will be presented with a list of potential data sources where the data could be collected. He will pick up the source he wants to deal with and authenticate to the source. The list of data that the system will retrieve is presented very transparently to the user, and then we collect the data. And the user will look at the data that is potentially going to be shared. And again, the user will have the right to share or not share the data with the organization that wanted to have the data. And it is as simple as that. Just in a few clicks, and the information is transferred to the organization. Obviously, it looks very simple here, but behind the scenes, it's a little bit more complex. There is one single API from which organization can today pick up to 300 data points with a query language. They can even select the data source, have a white or black list depending on the use case. All the consent from the user are stored by the platform, are timestamped, and I insist nothing will happen if the user is not willing to share the data, meaning that at the end of the process, the organization has the data they wanted to collect, but also proof of the authenticity of the data, and as well as the timestamp of the consent from the user. Because there are a lot of personal data, it's probably better to look at two very simple use cases. One, when you need to share authentic document, and here I took the example of a famous company in France, Sofinco, part of Crédit Agricole Group, who is a leader in a consumer loan, and they use MiTrust to collect the tax notice that we all receive at the end of the year from the tax authority. Another example from a smaller company named Verling, which is a broker, insurance broker, to provide a rent guarantee insurance, where they need to assess the financial capacity of a tenant to rent a property. And the idea here is to share income from the potential tenant, either using a bank, we do open banking, or using administrative sources to share the income. Could be a next slide. And at that time, you may wonder, okay, that's very nice, but are users willing to share their data? And it is a question we ask over 7,000 citizens in France last year. You know, if you were to prove your level of income, are you ready to, would you do that? And a priori, people will tell you, you know, classical way, I will provide my salary slips or my tax notice, and I will hand it over in the agency, or maybe I will upload them in the, over the internet. But nearly 40% of the users are ready to do that online using online data sharing mechanism, in particular open banking, but also ready to share data coming from administrative sources. So This is in theory, but let's see how it works in practice. In the two examples I mentioned, starting with Sofinco, if the presentation can move on, when they started using our service, they realized that the only person who were not using MiTrust were fraudsters, were not willing to share their information online, and what they call the tourists, meaning that people that were trying the service but were not ready to really apply for a loan. And that's why they decided to make service almost mandatory, and today over 99% of the documents are provided through our service. In the case of Verling, interestingly, over 90% of the users share their information online. 40% with open banking, 60% with what we call open admin. Why? Because they understand the clear advantage of sharing information online. They know they will have the answer immediately, and they have a better chance to get access to the properties they want to rent. So if you are transparent with the user and you highlight clear advantages, users are willing to share their personal information. And at the end, it's a matter of offering a better user experience, having efficient processes for the company, for the organization. And this is what we can see here. Sorry. These are the results, the benefits for the ecosystem. For the user, in case of the Sofinco, we went from a time to yes, which is the time between you apply for a loan and the answer from the bank. We went from 5 days in the traditional way of doing to 6 minutes. Pretty quick. In the case of the real estate, to apply for a rent, 2 minutes to get the answer. And for the company, the benefit is that you save time and money for the real estate agent. And by the way, for the insurance companies, they've managed to, as you can see, dramatically develop their business with that use case. So it's good for the users, it's good for the company if you are able to highlight the benefits for the end user. Now, MiTrust, where are we today? The company was created nearly 6 years ago. We are now operating in 3 countries, mainly in France, but also in Germany and in the Netherlands. You can view us as an instrument to implement the EU regulation. Someone mentioned GDPR this morning. I think it's a very fundamental regulation, and we are an instrument to implement the right to access your data, right to portability, and also something that sometimes is difficult to understand, the minimization concept, meaning that you share only the data that is required, and MiTrust here can help. The DGA came as a surprise to us, but I have to say it has institutionalized what MiTrust was doing. And I have to mention that we are also a registered account information provider because we do transact banking information, so we are also regulated by the Banque de France ACPR. Was mentioned several times this morning about the business model on the funding. I have to say that MiTrust has been funded by only private investors with an investment from Open CNP, the investment arm of CNP Assurance. Now, lesson learned, Joelle, 1 second on the lesson learned, because I think it's interesting. What we've learned is that there is demand for authentic data, and users are ready to play the game here with multiple use cases in multiple industries. it's also a benefit for the society. Someone spoke this morning about the social value of data. And we are great believers that such system can help society to fight against fraud, fight against discrimination, and fight against identity theft. Just as a reminder, you have over 200,000 identity theft in France because of the circulation of all these documents. Last but not least, what we believe will happen is that there is a business model here that we have demonstrated where companies are in demand and they are ready to pay, and in most cases the service is free for the user. Now, there is a limiting factor in our model, which is the access to the data. Today we lack API, we lack SLA when data are provided. And maybe if I draw a parallel with the financial sector, where DSP2, PSD2 has opened the data for the current account, and now with FIDA, we will enlarge the access to all financial information. One thing that FIDA will do is to allow banks and insurers to ask for a fair remuneration of the API. And we believe this should be extended, in particular for the data held by public administration. And I'm sure you've heard, like me, that some European countries today have a slight issue with their public deficit and their public debt. But I have good news for them. Companies are ready to pay for the data held by public administration if they provide good SLA, and for once, citizens will thank them for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Xavier. So, third case, so very different. Eva Maes, senior researcher in the Agri-Food Technology Unit of ILVO in the Institute for Agricultural and Fisheries Research Technology in Belgium. She works on data sharing and the data economy. In the agri-food sector, researching how this transition can make the agriculture and food chain more efficient, sustainable, and future-proof. She contributes to the development of DJust Connect platform and participates in European research projects focusing on fair and inclusive data economies and future-proof data sharing frameworks. So, Eva, the floor is yours. And sorry for the being
it's
late.
Okay. I will
before.
try to be not too long, but also not too short. So, yeah, I will tell our story from data sharing in agriculture from Flanders to Europe. But we start in Flanders. Oh, this goes very quickly. It's okay. It's just me. And our institute, the Flanders Research Institute for Agriculture, Fisheries and Food, we really are located in a research farm. We have a plant unit, animal science unit, social science unit, and an agri-food technology unit where I work. It's very important that we have all this domain knowledge in our institute because it's very important for the work we do on data sharing. We're a research center of the Flemish government, which is also important. We're a public-private player. And our mission is to make our sectors more sustainable. So I start with a farmer. I go 10 years back. We have a happy farmer who has also digitalization and technology coming into his farm. It's very helpful to make it more efficient, more sustainable, but it gets a bit a lot. And he gets less happy. It's the same story as for the citizen. It's too much. There's so much data needed for this. There's manual input. There's companies being overloaded with questions of where this document certification is again. So we really got this question from the sector to help and do something about it. And that's how Just Connect started. From this thing, yeah. Just Connect is our data sharing platform. It's hosted at ILVO. It's not a legal entity at the moment. It was financed also mainly from the sector, from 5 big corporations, together with some European funding. Really hard. Voilà, okay. Now it's too far. But why share data? So we start with the farmer who has too much administration. I think you heard a lot about this the last 2 years. They were in the streets to complain about this. There's so much legislation, so much to follow up. It's almost impossible for them. So that's the first reason why we started working on data sharing. But there's a lot of other reasons as well. Start today share data has a lot of impact. There's a ripple effect, and a lot of companies and government is asking for it. There's more and more precision farming. There's robotica, drones, use of AI. There's a lot of use in it in our sector. The food processing industry really already uses a lot of data, but is looking for systems to use this better, to plan better, to produce better. There's a retail, just one example, there's all this CSRD legislation. They also need to report on their sustainability. They need data for this coming from the farmer and the whole supply chain. The consumer also wants to be informed on a good and healthy, sustainable diet. Governments need a lot of information, but also have a lot of information that a lot of companies need. And then, last but not least, researchers also. So, there we go. So what is Just Connect exactly? It's our data sharing platform. It's a kind of data market. We don't sell data, but we have a place where where you can see which data is available. I start immediately with the business model as well. We are a B2B platform, but farmers also are our clients. Farmers register for free, companies depending on how much data they need. It's an open platform. Everybody is welcome as long as you follow the rules of Just Connect, and that you're very transparent on how do you use data and what do you use it for. In agriculture, it's quite important, but I imagine in all sectors there's a lot of competition and different views, but everybody's welcome and already using the platform at the moment. Then we have one dashboard for everybody. So every Flemish farmer, Flanders, it's the northern part of Belgium, I think you know. Every Flemish farmer already has a dashboard, for a personalized dashboard where the farmer can see which data is being asked by which company for which objective. We give the farmer back control of the data that is collected on his farm. Then there's one contract that is being signed by all the players who use the system, and that's aligned with all latest legislation. So for whom is it? I already said it shortly, but I said it again. It's for the farmers to start with. It's for the farmers to start with. They get less administration, better advice. They have control again. They can give consent on who has access to their data, and they get a lot of support from the Just Connect team to onboard, to register. There is a help desk, for example. It's very important to also not forget to be close to your users. Then it's for data providers. They can do market expansion, improve their business model, and then what is the advantage for them to join Just Connect? They are in the Connect shop, so their data is ready to use by everybody. They have juridical coverage. There's the API management that we do. And they have IT support from our team. And then there are the data users. They make their applications, give better advice, and have also all the support they need from us. This is the Connect shop. You can go to it. It's just www.justconnect.be if you're interested. It's also in French and English. And there's a whole list already. So if what is the principle of Just Connect? It's quite easy also in the front end. In the back end, it's something else. So if you want to make an application, you need data. You're the pink icon. You have an ID, and you see that there's data you're interested in available on Just Connect. So you do a data access request that is being passed to the data provider, the blue one. Normally there's arrows coming, but they are late. If the data provider approves, or maybe under certain conditions, often under certain conditions, there's no data going to the data consumer, but the question goes first to all clients of both of these companies. Only for the farmers that give consent, data goes back. This is a basic principle. This was implemented also by design, compliance by design, the European Code of Conduct of Data Sharing in Agriculture, but where the main principles now are also enforced in the Data Act. Also some screens to show that it's easy to use for everybody. This is the registration, the login page. I don't think there are a lot of Belgians here, but every Belgian recognizes this. It's a system the government uses, but a lot of companies also use the system. So it's easy. It's not, you don't need to remember 50 passwords, but you see, I can use my identity card of it's me, or it's me. It's a mobile application that every Belgian really uses nowadays. Then this is a dashboard of a farmer where they can see which applications want to use data. If there are pending requests, they can have a look, and at the right side, give consent or not. Also at any moment, change their minds and withdraw consent. So this is for, I just maybe very quickly give an example of which type of applications we have. The climate scans, for example, are a very important one. They calculate through life cycle assessments ecological footprints. A lot of all retailers are very, very interested in these. To do a scan like this, it's a lot of work. A consultant needs to go around 6 to 8 hours to a farm to collect all the data. Now more and more data can go automatically to the tool for the calculation through Just Connect if the farmer consents. Then based on these calculations, on the one side, there's a climate trajectory giving information to the farmer how to improve his climate footprint, but the results also go back to Just Connect and are available for the dairy industry and retail. What's important is that the more data is being shared, less administration there is for farmers and for companies, also for government. The government, in our case here, is one of the most important. They have a very important data source that is connected. They're mainly a data provider. All the parcel information is there, and it's a very requested data source. So it's like you already said also, once the work is done, if afterwards it's being used by more applications, it gets more useful for everybody. Once there are a lot of farmers on the system, more and more companies also join. That's what we are experiencing at the moment. Very quick idea on which type of applications there are. So a lot of on sustainability, farm management systems, so advice systems, also certifications, audits, etc. Bookkeeping. So where are we? We launched 5 years ago, a bit more than 5 years ago, with one demo, a handful of farmers, but we were already an operational platform at the beginning of 2020. At the moment, we have more than 56 connections with government and mainly companies, 3,800 farmers. It's around 25% of Flemish farmers that are using the system at the moment. and we really developed to a regional data space. And then how did we do this? I went too quickly. So important, it's easy to use, especially for the farmers. It's easy to use, and we're very accessible and close to all our users. For the companies, it's a very safe system and efficient system. They are legally covered. And also, very important, we develop new products and services based on what they need. So we have really ownership on our platform. If we feel that the sector is asking for something, we develop it, even if it's for a small number of companies. It can be some new services, very small companies that don't have a lot of IT yet. We make that there is an API viewer so they can quickly have insights in the results. There are more and more contractors also in the sector who don't know always on which parcel they are or from whom the parcel is, from which farmer. We develop services so they can also have access to the right data even if they don't have the link with the farmer, these type of things. And the basis is really trust and respect. We are also Ilvevo, we're a neutral partner, we have a very broad network, and this helps. That's also, I think, what's in the next slide, if you want to show. Yeah, we're very customer-driven, I already told you. We're tailored to the sector, we adapt our systems, it's all the support, the help desk we do. Our starting point is really the benefits of data sharing for farmers, for the companies. It's also the way we talk to the people. It's what Véronique also said, we don't talk about our farmers, about data spaces. It won't help it, we talk about less administration, and then we get them on board. So here are a bit the strong points of Ilvevo, but I think the most of these things I already mentioned. We have very strong collaborations with the government, with companies, but also in Europe. We're very well embedded in the European ecosystem, and that's where I want to go now. So we started really with Just Connect very locally, but very quickly we felt, agriculture is an international sector. There's a lot of expert machinery manufacturers have their machines everywhere. So we cannot stop sharing data at the borders. So we very quickly started to pilot sharing data across borders with France, with Sébastien, with Finland also. At the moment, we have with Spain, with Poland, always on specific business cases. We have a company that really wants to share data, a machinery manufacturer that has a lot of machine in France. So then we start from there and start talking with the data sharing systems that are in place. And that's how I'm at my last slide. Now we are, in fact, the coordinators of the Common European Agricultural Data Space. We're at the start. It's a new project, if it wants to show. Yeah. It started in April with a lot of partners, also with Dauphine, who is also looking at the governance and business part of this. But the results of this, it's for another session. We're at the start of this, but very excited to work more on
it. We will have a lunch together. So if we have questions, it will be possible to ask to Xavier as well, Eva, during the lunch. But maybe somebody have question to Jacques. Jacques, are you there?
Yes, Joelle, I am. But I have only a few minutes.
Okay, so we have also only a few minutes, so it's not an issue. Do somebody have a question to Jacques? Because he will not taking his lunch with us. Okay, one question.
Jacques, thank you very much for your presentation. I was intrigued with the increase of interest from the financial sector. Can you provide us some of the typical uses by the financial sector on satellite data, please?
I'm not the expert of the subject. One person in the Connect by CNES program is specialized in financial activity. But as I try to describe in my presentation, financial actors need to assess the risk of their investment, and they have to maybe have information of an asset like a construction or some activities in agriculture or in other domain. And what is interesting for the financial sector is that space data are giving information all over the world with the same indicator and the same quality of indicator. And with that, they are able to manage all the assets over the world with the same quality of indicator. And I think that it's a key in the way of using space data.
I think now it's time to go and have the lunch.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you for to all the speakers this morning. We will have a lunch break, and we resume in this room at 2 o'clock, just on time. The lunch break, the cocktail is organized at the same place as the coffee break a bit earlier. And see you then to continue the discussion about data space development, business models, AI application, etc., etc.